evaluating the superintendent. Are there any other changes, Kamala?
No other changes.
Okay. So we're now to public forum and announcements. Due to the online meeting format, we request that public comments be submitted in writing to the board secretary ahead of the meeting. Public comments can be emailed and added to the record if they are received before the meeting adjourns. If you would like to give a comment in Spanish, we will interpret your comments to English. Statements should be brief and should not reflect adversely on the background, character, or motives of any individual. So we have an extraordinary amount of engagement tonight, which I think is really wonderful. I've been my 8th year on the board, and I've never seen the kind of passion and sort of turnout, I guess, for lack of a better term, than what we're experiencing. So the way we're going to work this tonight, we have a handful of people, I think about, I guess more than a handful, about 15 that are interested in speaking, reading their own words. And then we have 50-ish, maybe a few more, that did not want to read their words. And so Sarah, the vice chair, and I will be taking turns reading those comments as we go through. We changed the limit from 3 minutes to 2 based on the sort of volume, so to speak, of comments. And the way it's going to work is Kamala will, our board secretary, will keep track of the time. And when she says time, if the person is reading, if you can please stop at that point. If Sarah or I are reading, we will stop at that point. Please know that all of your comments, like we have them in writing. I know I've been reading. I've been, again, amazed at how much participation there's been from our community. Like I said, I folks is it's pretty amazing. So we'll start with the people that are wanting to read their own words. So in terms of, we're going to move fairly quickly throughout. So when I'm going to say the person's name who I'm going to allow to speak first, and then I'll say the next 2 names so that you sort of know you're coming up on the list to start. Okay, so I'm starting with Kelsey Summer, and then second will be Anna Digby, and after that will be Emmanuel Hempsey. Kelsey, are you ready?
Hi, yep, can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Dear Canby School Board members, as a teacher in the Canby School District, I'm deeply concerned about the recent conversation regarding political speech in schools and possible changes to the teacher contract. Regardless of the specifics with the incident that prompted the conversation, it appears that the school board has sided with the parent without any consultation of the teacher. This makes me feel incredibly unsupported. Even if there could be basis for a valid concern, the way this issue has been handled displays a significant lack of trust in all teachers as professionals. Parents should always be encouraged, if not required, to discuss their concerns with the teacher first, and then if it's not resolved, to arrange a meeting with the principal. It is important to have a conversation with all parties involved and to not make decisions based on hearsay. In my 12 years of teaching, I have found that a student's interpretation of a situation may not be entirely accurate. So without discussing the issue with the teacher, how can a decision be made? You, the Canby School Board, have the power to help facilitate healthy relationships between teachers, students, families, and administration. But removing the teacher from the equation will only cause harm. Please show support and trust in your teachers by redirecting parents to speak with us before escalating the situation. Give us a chance to work together and be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. I'm going to say, as is true in board meetings when we are in person, this is our time to listen. The board doesn't respond directly to comments and it's not an engagement. At this point, it really is our time to listen. So I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware that that's how this portion works. Sorry, I'm Trying to get the search feature to work here. So Anna Digby is who I am looking up. And then after that, Emmanuel Hempsey and Aaron Walsh will be next after Emmanuel. Anna?
I'm here, thank you.
Great, go ahead.
Canby School Board. As an experienced educator, I'm appalled I need to make this comment. First, censorship has no place in our schools. Censorship hurts students. I would remind you that the academic freedom clause in the contract allows teachers to make choices that allow us to best teach our students. And I assure you, we take this responsibility very seriously. Also, I can't help but wonder if the reason the lesson artifact in question drew such a dramatic response is because it represented the views of a historically underserved community. I would remind you the creed of the Canby School District is all students, all abilities, all opportunities. Calling the presence of people such as Black, Indigenous, and people of color and their stories in curriculum politically charged in an effort to censor their voices is unacceptable. While I would hope that a school board would never try to do such a thing, the conversation at the last board meeting has raised many doubts. In closing, my request is this: respect me and my educational expertise. I'm appalled that board members would disregard the process already established for addressing curricular concerns and disregard the judgment of administration. That board members would flaunt all established rules and protocols, then demand the public board meeting is unacceptable. Your job is to support the education of Canby students, not put teachers on trial. Thank you.
Good timing. Thank you. So Emmanuel is next, then Aaron Walsh, then Emmanuel, you are up.
Good evening, members of the Canby School Board. My name is Emmanuel Hempsey and I live in Canby, have two sons who go to Canby High School and teach dual language immersion science at Baker Prairie Middle School. I'm extremely concerned about what I heard at the Canby School Board meeting that took place on October 1st. As you know, the Canby School District vision includes making sure we have equitable education for all. And I would like to address two things related to that vision. One, I believe that all parents and students should have equal access to voice their concerns and that there should be a fair and transparent process for how these concerns are handled. Our schools work towards having an environment that welcomes and promotes feedback. By bypassing the feedback process and speaking directly to board members, not only is the trust in our teachers, principals, and administration undermined, it creates an inequitable process where members of the community with connections to board members have a larger say than those without those connections. To have a school district with equitable education for all, we must make sure that all voices are heard, not just the voices of those with access to the people in power, and not just those that speak the loudest. Two, I believe that we must make education accessible for all students, especially the most marginalized ones who have been left out for so long. We teach students both the content of our field and how to be critical thinkers. I'm concerned that by limiting so-called politically charged ideas, what is actually being talked about is telling our already marginalized students, including our Latinx students and other students of color, and our gay, lesbian, and transgender students, that their ideas, their history, and essentially who they are is not valued in our schools. To have a school district with equitable education for all, we must allow our teachers to teach topics that express the honest discussions across a broad range of topics. We must not limit what is taught to the views of our board members. Thank you for your time.
Ultimately, it is the students who will suffer as a result of the board trying to micromanage teachers as we try to meet standards. In your efforts to censor educators, you are creating unnecessary animosity at a time when we need a greater sense of community than ever. It is disheartening to think the sacrifices teachers make on a daily basis to ensure a quality education with our current system being met with such a lack of respect. I would like to call your attention to a few of the Oregon social science standards my colleagues and I are currently facing difficulty meeting, with the current attitudes being demonstrated by some on this board. Analyze political parties, interests, and community groups in mass media and how they influence the beliefs and behaviors of individuals and local, state, and national constituencies. Examine pluralistic realities of society, recognizing issues of equity and evaluating the need for change. Analyze and explain persistent historical, social, and political issues, conflicts, and compromises in regards to inequality and justice and their connections to current events and moments. Identify and analyze ethnic groups, religious groups, and other traditionally marginalized groups, women, people with disabilities, immigrants, refugees, and individuals who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, their relevant historic and current contributions to Oregon, the United States, and the world. Identify and analyze multiple and diverse perspectives as critical consumers of information. Criticism is often taken out of context. If we live in fear of retaliation from board members and their social media posts and encouragement of public backlash against academic freedom, we cannot perform our duty as educators to meet these standards. Please consider how you speak of educators in public forums. Your students and constituents are watching. Thank you.
Thanks, Erin. Oops. Okay, so Sarah Morrow is next, and then Kimberly Kent and Jennifer Dorsey are on deck. And in the hole, technically, if we want to use the baseball analogy all the way. Sarah, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I've recently been involved in conversations regarding politicizing the classroom by some teachers here in Canby. As a parent, I feel I have the right to discuss political opinions with my children without the personal bias of a teacher entering their impressionable minds. With the upcoming election, rioting in Portland, Black Lives Matter, Proud Boys, Antifa, Back the Blue, and countless other topics that are being covered on the nightly news and social media, our children are bombarded with information that is frankly above their heads. Schools should be a safe place for our children to learn and be educated. Teachers should not use their classroom as a political platform to push their own personal political agenda and personal opinions. Educators should not have academic freedom to teach my children their personal political views or propaganda. Teachers should give instruction to my children on how to think, not what to think. Examples my children have told me they've learned from various teachers are: 1, if Trump is elected, your Hispanic friends are going to be deported. 2, Obama is the greatest president we've ever had, and he should be reelected. 3, Trump got what he deserved during the State of the Union when Pelosi tore up that paper. He wouldn't even shake her hand. Everyone take a piece of paper and tear it up. This is not education. This is not teaching my children how to think for themselves. This is not education at all. As a parent, I should have the right to receive a lesson plan if I ask for it. If a lesson plan cannot be made easily available to me, this concerns me even more. I've also been informed that certain symbols have been deemed as hate speech and are going to be banned soon. While part of me understands and wants hate removed from our society, I must say that one of the only ways we can learn from
Sarah, we've reached the 2 minutes. Thank you for submitting your comments and for participating tonight, and we will make sure that we read the rest of what you submitted. Thank you. Okay, Kimberly Kent. And then Jennifer Dorsey and Abby Perrin are next. Kimberly, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, welcome.
Thanks. I'm both appalled and frightened by the discussion from the October 1st school board meeting. First, it seems to me that this idea is in opposition to the school board's stated mission to work with our district administration to build a highly successful local education system that responds to the needs of our children. Our district administration has worked tirelessly to find and create curriculum, professional development, and supports that help educate all our students. To do so as teachers, we are reminded that we need to be responsive to students from different backgrounds and cultures. We are trained to be empathic and caring, to look for hooks that help engagement for students and families. While none of this is political, the very idea of removing our academic freedom so that we can respond to our students as needed is an inherently political concept. I find it ironic that in trying to remove any semblance of politics from teachers' repertoire, certain board members are creating a de facto political message of their own. Second, I actually agree with board member Stephanie Carlson's statement about free speech that she made in the last meeting during the discussion of the All Students Belong rule. Ms. Carlson asked about the slippery slope of curtailing free speech. And I agree that in 2020, what is and is not political speech has become blurred. If I see a truck with an American flag out the back, I can make a reasonable assumption of how the owner is voting. If I see a woman wearing a t-shirt that says vote, I can also make a reasonable but different assumption on how that person is voting. We are in an environment where the encouragement of participating in democracy and our national symbol have been co-opted into differing political meanings. In such an environment, any curtailing of academic freedom is, as Ms. Carlson mentioned, a slippery slope that we should not tread. These 2 points integrate into a cohesive message. Just about anything could be considered political right now. To end academic freedom for teachers could easily create a ripple effect of authoritarianism that no one wants. Professionals in our district have been given the job to navigate this minefield, and the best course of action.
Thanks, Kimberly. Okay, I'm letting in Jennifer Dorsey, and then Abby Perrin and Sherry Smith will be next. Hi, Jennifer, are you there?
I am here finally.
You're welcome.
To the welcome, thank you, I should say, to the members of the Canby School Board. The actions that occurred in a public forum from members of the school board are disturbing. We are professionals and we are very conscientious of not pushing our political views onto students. However, that doesn't mean that controversial topics won't come up in the classroom. Teaching visual art for the last 25 years has taught me that everything can be controversial. Everyone has different perspective. What concerns one person could be something completely neutral to someone else. That element in life is what allows us to tap into critical thinking and learn to think globally. It also allows us to develop empathy for others. Educators have been working themselves into the ground to make distance learning engaging for students. A large part of this is based on trust. We have to trust that our students and parents are giving us the benefit of the doubt as we navigate distance learning. We need to trust that our lessons are not being taken out of context and picked apart to prove a personal bias. We need to trust that elected members of the school board will follow procedures already in place if there are any questions surrounding the content of what we are teaching. We need to trust that there are any concerns, members of the school board will be professional and follow their own school board policies. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so I'm gonna bring in Abby Perrin, and then Sherry Smith and Gretchen Benner are the next two after that. Hi, Abby, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you, welcome.
Hi. The guidelines limit me from specifically addressing certain board members if it paints them in a bad light, but I find the request hypocritical when some members of this board feel as though it is acceptable to publicly criticize teachers. So I will refer to the two board members as those who must not be named. Regarding the last board meeting, I want to know who allowed these members to be on the agenda with their type of concerns. Their type of issues should be addressed in a closed session and should have been stopped immediately. These two members shared concerns about the political nature of certain lessons and curriculum. What curriculum are you speaking of? The school district and school board hasn't purchased social studies, science, art, or health curriculum since before I started teaching 14 years ago. In fact, the books I had been teaching with were the ones I had used as a 6th grader in Beaverton. I am 37. Do the math. Until News ELA showed up as a stopgap, the most current 6th grade social studies book in Canby listed Bill Clinton as the most current president. By all means, parents, I encourage you to speak to board members. They are members of our community and our friends. You should advocate. It is your job to advocate. But with that being said, parents, there's a proper way to advocate. Board members, however, do not get to just publicly question individual teachers. This is not Canby now. Those who must not be named have said that parents are worried about retaliation towards their children by the teacher. I hate to break it to everyone, but the teachers are exhausted. To even suggest that retaliation is even a possibility is insane, even on a good day. It is the last thing on their mind. They are all trying to survive, and they're trying to create lessons that meet the needs of all students, not just yours. It's this magic thing called public school. The concept of other people is a beautiful thing, and Black lives really, really do matter. Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Sherry Smith, you're up, and then Gretchen Benner and Kathleen Jeske. Are you there, Sherry?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Welcome. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Dear Canby School Board members, I was present at the last school board meeting and have been in subsequent conversations about political speech in school. There are differing opinions on what constitutes political speech, as well as whether or not teachers have the academic freedom to engage in such political speech during school hours. It is my understanding that a teacher shared a picture during an art class in which students were asked if several different pictures were considered art. One picture shared by the teacher showed a boy standing up against a wall with his back to the camera. The caption on the picture read, "I worry about people in my family getting shot. My cousin was shot and died. I don't think anybody should carry a gun, even the cops. Then nobody would get shot." I find this art to be completely offensive propaganda. I acknowledge that I do not know what the other pictures the teacher shared with the students. If this picture is considered art, would it also be considered art if a teacher put up a picture of a fetus that said, "I worry about women killing their babies. My cousin was aborted and died. I don't think any woman should abort their baby, even rape victims. Then no baby would get aborted." There is no place for either one of these pictures to be in the classroom or discussed during school hours. One could make the argument that the picture without the caption can be art, but with the caption, then it changes the intent of the message. A picture of a fetus could be considered art as well. But again, once a caption of that nature is added to the picture, the intent changes. These loaded propaganda messages should not be in the classroom. The purpose of our teachers is to teach our children how to think, not what to think. Teaching a student how to think allows them to have the skills needed to decipher and discern the things around them and form their own opinions and beliefs. Anything to the contrary is indoctrination. As a parent, I have the right to discuss anything political with my children, and that includes the election, candidates, as well as other political groups like BLM, Antifa, Proud Boys, and Back the Blue. It is not the job of teachers to give their opinions in any form of communication related to these topics, only the facts.
Sorry, this is, we reached the time limit. Thank you for participating. So Gretchen Benner is coming in, and then Kathleen Jeske and Christopher Calkins will be next in line. Gretchen?
Good evening.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for
Thank you. As best I could tell from the board meeting, some board members did not follow policies and procedures stipulated by the board members' standard of conduct and the board approved legal contract with the CEA. But even more concerning was the reason given for this dereliction of duty. Mainly that a parent came to a board member because they feared their student or family would be retaliated against by school staff, including teachers and principals. And yet the serious accusation was skimmed over. My question is, was there any follow-up to this concern? Did you ask why they thought their family or student would be retaliated against? Is there a history of retaliation when a parent or student has a complaint or concern? Because if so, shouldn't that systematic problem be addressed over a single lesson? Did you ask for and collect facts and examples of this concern of retaliation? Or was this an easy excuse for all complaining and outraged parties to not go through the proper channels and steps in order to bypass having difficult conversations with professionals who may disagree with them? How can we ask our students to openly engage in quality dialogue about important topics and issues with people they may disagree with if we as adults are not modeling that behavior? And how can we condemn and eradicate the escalation, hysteria, exaggeration, and misinformation that many students are prone to due to how fast social media works if they see their parents and school board leaders doing the same? At one point in the meeting, a board member stated that the school's job is to teach reading, writing, and math. That statement is simplistic, it's insulting, and it's just not true, as evidenced by the very mission statement adopted by this board and accessible on our district website under the title Board Priorities. Much of the district's professional development has focused on engagement as a critical step in reaching these goal priorities. In order to honor the need for engagement of diverse population, it means having diverse curriculum, diverse conversations, and diverse and multiple viewpoints. Are these goals just lip service or meant to serve only select student groups? Something to consider. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gretchen. Kathleen Jeske, you're up now, and then Christopher Calkins and Troy Souls, you're next on the list. Hi, Kathleen, can you hear?
Can you hear me now? Oh,
yeah,
no.
Please proceed.
All right, thank you. The last board meeting was vague and full of innuendo that cast aspersion on the entire district staff. Exactly what was being discussed appeared to be a mystery even to some board members, and it certainly was a mystery to me. In no way should that have happened. It fueled rumors and division in our community, and folks in leadership positions should not do that. I was particularly upset by the insinuation that staff would participate in some kind of retaliation against a parent or student who raised a concern. What power would a teacher have to retaliate against a parent? And as a teacher myself, I never ever would have retaliated against a student for something their parent said. That is juvenile behavior and beneath the dignity of an adult professional. In fact, I believe a staff member could face disciplinary action for that. If parents are going directly to school board members so that they can remain anonymous rather than follow established communication procedures, that behavior should not be encouraged. It enables parents to shy away from their duty to directly advocate for their child, something that the district should be helping parents learn to do, not discouraging. I also believe, now that I've seen the content of the lesson, that the teacher did nothing wrong. The art lesson presented a number of images. One image was soldiers taking a goofy picture. I could say that this image portrays the military as fun, and I disagree with that because I am a pacifist. I could say that the images of meat and dairy products go against my family's belief as vegans. Neither of those statements actually reflect my personal beliefs. I'm just pointing out that, taken out of context, a case can be made for any single image being in some way offensive to someone. Any of those feelings, including the one expressed by the anonymous complainant, could be brought up by students. That does not mean the teacher is pushing an agenda, nor does it indicate how the discussion was guided. I assume the discussion led back to what the teacher stated, that, quote, art is subjective. You may not think it's art and you may not agree with the artist, but it's important to respect everyone's opinion. I ask that this board respect the professionalism of our staff.
That's the limit. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Christopher Calkins, I'm going to bring in, and then Troy Souls and Stephanie Agar are after that. Let's see, I'm getting an error message, just a second. Are you there, Christopher? Christopher? One more time, I'll try. Christopher, are you there? Okay. I'm not sure what happened there, but we will move to the next person. So Troy Souls, you're coming in now, and then Stephanie Agar and Alex Lopez. Hey there, Troy.
I am now. Can you hear me all right?
We can. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you. Concerns around criticism of teachers and the encroachment of academic freedom. Members of the Canby School Board, while I realized that this was not the position of the collective school board, I was shocked to hear school board members advocating for encroaching on academic freedom and criticizing teachers in a public forum, despite the advice to the contrary from an Oregon School Board Association legal counsel in the October 1st, 2020 meeting. As a parent of two sons at Canby High School, an uncle of two nephews at Canby High School, a graduate of this school district, class of 1990, a community member since 1977, a high school teacher, and a coach for multiple sports. I wish to stress the fundamental need to protect teachers from any censorship or restraint which interferes with their obligation to perform the prescribed teaching task. As teachers, we strive to help students become critical thinkers, processing information while looking for bias, all while being conscientious of the dissemination of information and the validity of sources. I therefore take issue with any efforts of our school board aimed at second guessing or armchair quarterbacking our work through micromanagement that make an already challenging job more difficult. In the meeting in question, a strongman argument was thrown about that there are teachers who are trying to push a particular political agenda. In my experience, including nearly 20 years of teaching in this district, my colleagues, while representing a microcosm of the political views of this great nation, both conservative and liberal, are above all else, professionals who navigate challenging topics in class objectively while encouraging critical thinking and civil discourse, qualities that would benefit our nation as a whole if they existed in greater abundance. And I have invited various school board members who had issues that they felt they needed to bring up to speak to me or to share the things that they found so offensive, and no one has taken me up on that. So I sincerely hope that you will collectively.
Time's up, Troy. Thank you for participating.
Yep.
I feel like I'm putting people in the corner or something when I do this. Okay, we have Stephanie Agar, Alex Lopez, and then I just got a note I'm adding to the list, Matt Stewart will be after Alex. Hi, Stephanie, are you there?
I'm here.
Great, go ahead.
Today, the Oregon Department of Education passed a resolution regarding Black Lives Matter. Here are a few pertinent paragraphs from the resolution. Whereas Black Lives Matter, and whereas the U.S. Office of Special Counsel issued an advisory opinion that it is not a violation of the Hatch Act for federal employees to show support for the Black Lives Matter movement and the Black Lives Matter Global Network while on duty, including wearing or displaying materials related to the cause, because they address issues such as racism, which are not inherently aligned with a single political party and do not meet any criteria for a partisan political group. And whereas we acknowledge that the authors of Oregon's Constitution declared that no Black people could reside in the state or hold real estate, a law that wasn't repealed until 1926, and that racist language in the state constitution wasn't removed until 2002, all of these causing lasting negative consequences for Black communities. And whereas an undeniable series of tragic events and crises have unfolded in Oregon and around the US, including the COVID-19 pandemic, wildfires, and violence driven by systemic racism that have stacked harm upon harm against Black, Indigenous, Native American, people of color, tribal communities, and tribal governments. And whereas, in believing that silence and inaction allow racism to remain prevalent in our schools, we declare that Black Lives Matter in order to reinforce that the lives of Black educators, staff, students, and everyone in school communities are just as valuable as everyone else's life, and that Black students matter and belong in our classrooms just like all other students. Therefore, be it resolved that the Oregon State Board of Education urgently requests that all Oregon school districts, public charter schools, and education service districts affirm that Black Lives Matter by striving to make space in classrooms.
Thanks, Stephanie. Okay, so we have Alex Lopez and then Matt Stewart. Hi, Alex, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you for allowing me to say a few words. Nowadays, more than ever, our students live in a world where information flows so rapidly. All it takes for them is to check their Facebook wall, and they can be exposed to opinions disguised as facts. The job of a teacher is to help students to think critically so they can analyze what is thrown at them. Our job is to provide a safe environment in which they can voice their opinions and learn from each other's perspectives. We are not there to censor them. As a teacher, I know for a fact that I am not always in control of what is said in my classroom because my students don't live in a bubble. Please allow me to elaborate on that. A couple of years ago, one of my fourth graders was brave enough to share with the class that he was worried that ICE, also known as La Migra, was in Canby, and that he was worried that they were going to take his dad. Some of my Hispanic students knew exactly what he meant, whereas others didn't know what he was talking about. But what they did have in common was that they care about how their classmate was feeling. As curious as fourth graders are, they started asking questions such as, why are they taking your dad? Are they taking him to jail? Did he do anything wrong? If someone were to have walked into my classroom at that moment in time, that person would have thought that I was teaching a lesson on illegal immigration. And I was neither pushing any agenda or sharing any views on the topic. The conversation just happened because my students are human beings who live in the real world, not in a perfectly round, sanitized bubble. If policy is changed in regards of freedom of teaching and we start censoring certain topics, does that mean that I'm not allowed to allow my students to share how they're feeling because what they would say could be considered controversial or it might touch a nerve? Am I all of a sudden going to start censoring what my students might say because I would be afraid to get called by the school board to justify myself? I would not be doing my job if I do.
That is our time limit. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Okay, Matt Stewart, you're up, and then we will start, Sarah and I will start reading the other comments. Matt, are you there?
Can you hear me?
We can. Please go ahead.
Dear board members, we have personally had issues with politics being brought into our children's classroom here in Canby. As parents, we feel we have the right to discuss anything political with our children, and that includes the candidates in the election, our amendment rights, and having conversations with our children regarding BLM, Proud Boys, Antifa, and Back to Blue. Our understanding is that a teacher shared a picture during art class asking students if a young Black boy with his back turned and making statements like, I don't think cops should have guns because then nobody gets shot, is completely inappropriate. It goes against our Second Amendment rights and what we teach our children at home. And further, we stand behind our family and friends in law enforcement. It is a teacher's job to teach students how to think, not what to think. A teacher that teaches a class and their students don't know what their political views are is an educator doing their job. We have a high school student that was in a government class at the high school. We were under the impression the class curriculum was being taught would teach about how our government worked, branches of government, the Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, and our amendment rights. Instead, it turned into the first week of class. The teacher let our son know that he would not be recording any Zoom meetings, even if it was a requirement, he would not record them, stating that it infringed on privacy. In our opinion, that choice guards him from accountability. There was a poll he posted for the students to take, asking who they would elect in the upcoming election to get a feel for the class. At the end of the second week, the class time was spent participating in First Amendment Friday.
And that's the time limit. Thank you for participating. Okay, so I will go ahead and start, and then Sarah and I are just gonna, I guess, talk until our mouths get dry, and then take turns. So I will get us started. And Kamala, you'll continue to do the timer for this as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you. This is from Amy Vidden. Teachers and other school staff are, to the Canby School Board, teachers and other school staff are professionals and are very conscious of not pushing their political views onto students. I myself have worked in schools and was very careful in this regard. However, that doesn't mean that controversial topics won't come up in the classroom, because everyone has a different perspective. What concerns one person could be something completely neutral for someone else. This is why teachers promote open communication between themselves, their students, and parents. Censoring topics in schools is a dangerous road that will directly and negatively impact our students. I support our teachers and the curriculum they work very hard to provide, especially in these trying times. If I were to have an issue with any curriculum that my two sons, students at Baker Prairie and Canby High School, had in their classrooms, I would handle it through the appropriate channels, speaking with the teacher first, then the supervisor, and then the school board if things were not resolved. These types of disputes do not belong on social media or in front of the school board unless all other options have been exhausted. Please let our teachers do their work in the way that they were trained as professionals. Next up is Amy Wood. Dear board members, thank you for your time, hard work, and hours of service to our schools and children. You are appreciated. We have been involved in conversations regarding quote, politicizing in the classroom, end quote, by teachers here in Canby. As a parent, I feel I have the right to discuss anything political with my children, and that includes the election at hand, as well as BLM, a conversation with my child regarding BLM, Proud Boys, Antifa, and Back the Blue. My understanding is that a teacher shared a picture during art class of a young Black boy with his back turned and making statements like, quote, I don't think cops should have guns because then nobody would get shot, end quote. This is completely inappropriate. It goes against our Second Amendment rights and what we teach our children at home. It is not the right of a teacher to teach politically hot topic issues as, quote, art in class, no matter what grade. I understand social studies and maybe language arts classes would be touching on politics, but teaching and indoctrinating are two completely different things. I'm very angry to see that our teachers are blatantly overstepping their bounds. It's the teacher's job to teach the student how to develop thoughts, not what to think. Educators shouldn't have academic freedoms to teach our children politics and or propaganda. And what exactly is academic freedom anyway? Why have I not been informed of what it is as a parent? And if political views are going to be presented, it should be a respectful, honoring balance of political representation of both Republican and Democrat politics, not just these hot topic, volatile, highly sensitive social issues going on. Not sure why these issues are even being presented in class when we have missed so much school in 2020. There's so much these kids missed, and teachers should be focusing on catching up on academics. To add to all that, lessons should be able to be viewed by parents and board members at any time. It is my right to know what my child is being taught as a parent and taxpayer. On Canby High School's website, the following mission statement is written. Canby School District shall promote non-discrimination and an environment free of harassment based on an individual's race, color, religion, gender, sexual orientation, national origin, disability. My eyes are starting to cross. There is more here, so as is true in all of these cases, we as the board will be sure to read all of the words, even if they aren't spoken out loud tonight. This is from Angela Kastrova. Hope I don't butcher any names. I am concerned that school board members are leading a conversation about censorship in our schools before the family involved, teacher, principal, and or superintendent were given the opportunity to communicate and resolve this issue. The academic freedom clause in the contract provides teachers the freedom to make choices in order to best teach his or her students. Teachers should be able to discuss age-appropriate and socially relevant topics with their students as related to curriculum and standards. Teachers also need to give students the chance to develop their own critical thinking skills. The lawyer from OSBA was clear in the rules regarding political speech in schools. If a teacher violated one of these rules, there are processes in place for dealing with this. However, this discussion was not about political speech, but about topics, images, and articles taken out of context that struck a nerve with some people. There's a difference. I truly hope that part of censoring content is not an effort to censor the history of historically underserved communities such as BIPOC or LGBTQ. Our community should not call out the presence of these people and their stories in curriculum as politically charged in an effort to censor their voices, if that is the case. I sincerely hope this is not what the school board is trying to do. Please support teachers, students, and families through encouraging direct communication and respecting the systems in place when further assistance is needed by families in the education of their children. Sarah, how about I'll do this one and then I'll kick it to you for a bit. Okay. Oh, I was like, where's the name? Right at the top. That's where the name is. Betty Ravenous. To Canby School District board members, I want to start this public comment with a thank you to each board member for your service to the Canby School District. I am fully aware of the commitment of time and energy you are making in your role as Canby School District board members. Currently, there is a topic the board has been discussing that I want to be sure you are aware of my strong feelings on how a board member should be responding. This topic is the ongoing discussion regarding political speech and criticism of teachers in schools. After reading the Canby First Facebook article titled "School Board Airs Concerns Over Political Speech in Classrooms," the statement, quote, "Several Canby School Board members have received examples of inappropriate political speech being shared by teachers," end quote. I am troubled by this statement. I believe the article is sharing the opinions of 3 school board members. If this was a fact and material was shared with the student's principal or Superintendent Goodall, I am confident they would have followed Canby School District procedure and addressed the issue following certified contract approved by both the Canby Education Association and the Canby School District. My greatest concern is that the process was not followed before the school board discussed this issue at the board meeting. The responsible action by a board member to a parent coming to them with any concern that happened in the classroom should have been, I hear your concern, but you need to start with either speaking to the teacher or the principal, not to take the action that has been taken. We are a diverse community and there will never be a time when we all 100% agree on any topic. CEA and CSD agreed in the current contract to academic freedom, Article 4, Section H, Paragraph 2. When we are not open to listening to the context of a statement we hear or a picture we see, then we run the risk of making assumptions about what the intent was or what was said or what was shown. Canby School District teachers should be able to expect board members to follow the process for criticism of teachers, contract between CEA and CSD Article 4C, when issues are brought forward to your attention. The process was not followed in this incident. A parent fearing retaliation should not have been an excuse by a board member to avoid following the agreed process within the certified contract. Okay. Sarah, you're up.
All right, thank you, Angie. Next is Robert Hammett. Dear Canby School Board, I am not going to be long or redundant with my letter. I, like my esteemed peers, are very disappointed with what I am hearing in what I heard in your meeting last week. 17 years ago, I was teaching and coaching in Las Vegas in a job in a school that I really enjoyed. When I was offered a job at Canby High School, it was a very tough decision. I was really struggling with the question of what to do with my future. My longtime friend, Wayne Oliver, looked me in the eye and said, Bob, this is a place where the community really treats its teachers and coaches right. You'll be happy you came here. Those were the words that sealed my decision. I've always thought he was right, and I made the correct choice. What I saw and heard at last week's meeting was not consistent with that. We teach our students to slow down, try to look at many facts as they can gather, and reflect before passing judgment, as our first look at situations is often not necessarily wrong, but incomplete. I feel that some members of the board did not do this. I believe sincerely that you would not be on the school board if you did not care immensely about kids in this community. Nearly all of you have sent your kids through our schools or are currently doing so. I know you would agree that we have a wonderful staff who passionately cares about students and continuously do excellent work with them. Many of our teachers decided to come to Canby for the same reason I did. Please offer them a very simple measure of support, the benefit of the doubt. If we want to continue to get the best and brightest to teach in our schools, we must conduct ourselves in a way that is fair and supportive to our educators. The greatest thing for future Canby students is to attract the best employees possible. In order to do this, we have to continue to earn the reputation of one who supports its teachers and treats them fairly and with respect. The conduct of last week's meetings not only damages teachers, but the students of the present and future, who I know we share a mutual care for. Next is Bree Snyder. Dear board members, I have become aware of some conversation in regards to politics in the classroom by our teachers here in Canby. As a parent of young children, I feel it is necessary to keep politics at home with discussions among ourselves. This includes the current election with its running mates, as well as groups like BLM, Proud Boys, Antifa, and Back the Blue. I understand there's a place in education for talking about government and all that consists of. However, it is to educate them on the process involved and how government works, not to help shape the minds of students who they should vote for. The picture of a young Black boy with his back turned and making statements like, I don't think cops should have guns because then nobody would get shot, is completely inappropriate and blatant propaganda. This was also shown as part of an art class, which has no business presenting topics like this in light of the current political climate, especially with the topic of police and guns. In other words, pictures like this present cops as gunning down innocent Black people to young minds. This picture can lend itself to questioning our Second Amendment right and becomes a slippery slope in reference to how we uphold law and order in this country. We feel that school is a place of learning, specifically about reading, writing, and math. This time-tested educational model has, looking at our parents and our generation, never failed. With Canby having very low test scores, a parent is only left to think that our focus is being steered in the wrong direction. We need to redirect our sights on building students who are academically sound for life after school and ready for the workforce. Schools need to be about making critical thinkers, not telling them what to think, as Mike Zagava stated. Board members should also be allowed to discuss things like the above statement without stating information about a teacher or student. Privacy is something that can be achieved and allows the community to be aware of what is happening and being taught. There is no. Thank you. The next is Brenda Cortez. To the Canby Board of Directors, we are writing to express our dismay over some board members' decision to attack academic freedom and Article 4 protections for teachers. At 1/3/22 of the October 1st board meeting, one board member expresses dismay that Article 4 doesn't allow them to discuss curriculum or individual teachers or their lessons. That is simply untrue. Article 4 does not stop board members from having a conversation with the superintendent, requesting curriculum, or discussing lessons with individual teachers. It stops them from doing it in a public forum. All of these things can be done and clearly have been in closed board sessions. The only reason we can see for wanting to change policy in order to criticize individual teachers and their lessons in a public forum is to intimidate individual teachers, possibly vilify them in front of the community and turn this board and all future boards into a political tool in and of itself. As reported by the Canby Current, some board members found this lesson offensive because they felt it didn't support the Second Amendment. So their solution is to trample on the First Amendment. How is this promoting the values of freedom and liberty in Canby schools? Also, we can't help but notice how out of touch one board member's quote sounded in the Canby Current. They said one image was inappropriate because gun violence was not a common concern for Canby students. We wonder if that board member knows about the safety lock installed on our classroom doors. The second thing we do every morning when we come into our classrooms is set up that safety lock. So should someone come to shoot our students, we can lock the door from the inside. Does that board member know we practice active shooter drills? Canby students are concerned about gun violence. They know exactly what that lock is for. Speaking of fairness and justice, we hope that if the board continues down this path, that they will consider revising the board policies that don't allow criticism of board members in public meetings, because sometimes we in the Canby community question how some board members, as elected officials represent Canby schools in public?
Time.
Thank you. All right, the next is Brenda Cortez. To the Canby Board of Directors, I, like many other teachers, am appalled by how out of context the art lesson at the center of this controversy was taken. I was really expecting the lesson to be shocking, but after reading the article published in today's Canby Current and seeing the lesson in its entirety, the only conclusion I came to is that a few board members are doing exactly what they are accusing teachers of, trying to steer teachers and curriculum to promote their personal political agenda. After re-watching the board meeting from October 1st, I am also struck by how hyperbolic one board member was in their language compared to the records request reported by the Canby Current. At minute 41:47, the board member mischaracterizes the situation. I have received so many emails this week, quote, unquote, when in fact, according to the records received by the Canby Current, board members received 3 emails about the art lesson in question. 3, I'm sure that doesn't take into consideration that another board member was posting part of the art lesson out of context on a public forum and stirring up more controversy around the issue that way. I am deeply saddened and disappointed in the board members leading the charge against academic freedom. Do we really want Canby schools to be a place where teachers are afraid to teach? How will that benefit students? But this is what you will have if you repeal that support academic freedom and attempt to remove Article 4 protection for teachers. I'll pass it back to you if that works, Angie.
Yes. Great. Next is Brooke Toma. Dear Canby School Board members, I have been involved in conversations regarding Canby School District teachers injecting personal ideologies and politics into the classroom. I have also heard that citizens and parents' request for access to curriculum has not been honored. I feel it is extremely inappropriate to discuss such topics unless equal weight is given to all opinions, and further, that any and all curriculum should be available to the citizens and parents who pay the taxes that fund the schools. We have a right to know what is being taught to our children. Certainly, teachers should refrain from declaring their personal beliefs, whether blatant or passive, as it could be construed as factual information. My understanding is that in one example, a teacher shared a picture during art class showing students a young boy with his back turned, with part of the caption saying, "I don't think cops should have guns because then nobody would get shot." I feel this is very calculated, manipulative, and extremely inappropriate. My problem with this is that it may lead children to believe that they should be fearful of law enforcement, and that's not okay. Extreme ideologies on either side should not be introduced to impressionable minds. I have a fourth grade daughter with a learning disability who attends a Canby school. She is very easily influenced. This summer, she left our home on a walk without telling anyone she was leaving. To make a long story short, we had to call the Canby Police Department to find her. In our home, we have taught our children to respect authority and to find a police officer to help them if they are in trouble. Had she been convinced by a teacher to not trust the police or that they will shoot you, our story may not have had a happy ending. If she was fearful of the police officers that were helping her, she may have run or hidden from them. Instead, she trusted them to get her back home safe to her mom and dad, which is exactly what they did. The bottom line is that there's no place in Canby schools for ideology or personal politics. This practice of teaching one-sided politics or ideals needs to be stopped. One way to help curb this is to make the real and honest curriculum and lesson plans available. Educators need to be praised for their hard work, but they also should be held accountable when they step out of line. Candy Millar. Dear board members, I'm a grandparent of 4 Canby School District students. I have been a complete advocate for our school district for my whole adult life. A little history. My husband and I, as well as my mother, our children, and our grandchildren have completed or are currently trying to complete their education in the Canby School District. I was a member of the 91 School District Board for 9 years prior to unification. I then served on the local school committee for 91 as part of the Canby District for many years. I have worked on many bond campaigns over the years, as well as many committees. I have been an advocate for our district, and I felt comfortable discussing any situations that arose during my time on the board and our local school committee. This is not the case currently. Our district over the last couple of years has become something I'm not proud of. I have been made aware of questionable curriculum. One recently was an art class picture showing a young boy with his back turned, making statements about guns and police having guns, etc. This is completely inappropriate. It appears to be a scare tactic and not appreciated by all individuals. My grandchildren are not comfortable in some situations with the insinuations the classroom conversations have taken. Politics, sexual persuasion, religion, and firearm discussions do not belong in the classroom. Only in the privacy of our own homes should these types of issues be discussed. As school board members, you are responsible to your constituents to answer questions about the district. This cannot happen if you are not free to discuss openly anything that is taught in the district, regardless of the content. I am very disturbed by the liberal attitude that our district has taken. Facts are the only thing that should be taught. Let the students with their own unique backgrounds make decisions for themselves after being presented facts. Carrie Stewart. To the CSD Board of Directors, I have been working in the Canby school system since 2007. My husband and I began our family here, and we trust that our choice to stay and raise our children in this community was a solid, well thought out one. We think that Canby has a lot to offer. It is with this belief that I am writing with my concerns over last week's board meeting. I am beyond troubled that it appears as though the school board is attempting to censor the education offered in Canby. As a social studies teacher, I have many discussions about government and rights as we learn about the founding of our government. In these discussions, we consider the difference between the reason a bill was written and how it is used today. These discussions get kids excited. We have great conversations where sometimes it is beneficial to argue an opposing view. This is not because I am imposing my own belief, but so that students may see another side. I work very hard to keep my own views out of it while pushing the students to come to their own decisions. I appreciate and agree with the idea that our job is teaching the students how to think, not what to think. Teaching them how to think means that we as educators are teaching our students to be critical thinkers. They should question both sides of the issues and work through it. Sometimes this may be uncomfortable. That is okay. Also, please don't discount the kids. High schoolers are not the only ones ready to tackle these conversations, and the Oregon Department of Education agrees in their standards, which I have attached. I also appreciate Angie Dilk's comment about trusting the teachers and administrators of our district. From the meeting, it seems clear that there is a policy in place for a parent with concerns. Because of this, I'm confused by the fear of retaliation mentioned. I cannot imagine that a colleague or I would retaliate against a student because their parent disagreed with something in class. I'm disappointed in the school board for even considering moving forward on this topic. Please remember that many of us are here because we love our job and the way it allows us to introduce students to the world around them by gathering information and then thinking critically about it, not by blindly believing what they are told to believe. This is from Chris Bangs. To the Canby School District Board of Directors, it has been with considerable alarm that I have watched and read about your recent concerns over political content in the classroom and your attempts to bypass established and normative processes for handling complaints about teachers. While I realize that three of you have emphasized your respect for both teacher professionalism and due process, your collective actions led by Deppner, Carlson, Scott, and Reinheimer have created an untenable situation here in Canby. On a personal level, please recognize that what you have done to the state of public education in our community. Here in my 21st year of teaching government classes at Canby High School, among many other social studies classes that are less politically charged, there has never been one formal complaint about political bias in my classes, nor any other complaint for any reason. Now, because of your desire to have people hunting and seeking evidence of political malfeasance and your stated interest in bypassing due process, my professional reputation was trashed last week in social media with a series of lies posted by the parents of one of my senior government students. It was said that I constantly tell students I am voting for Biden. I have not once said this. Banned Fox News as a source. I have not once done this. And favored the liberals in class discussion. Also untrue. When Greg Dins and I met with the two parents on Tuesday this week, they repeatedly justified their actions by saying that you, the Canby School Board, wanted it. In the end, these parents apologized, but not on that same social media platform. This was a grossly unfair attack on me encouraged by you. This does not help teachers, students, or schools and constitutes a violation of your role as board members. On a less personal level, I think it is essential for you to answer the question, how is it you are qualified to review lesson plans by teachers to determine inappropriate content? Teachers and administrators, and especially Tripp Goodall and Yvonne Dibley, are the experts in this field, and you pay a lot of money for their expertise. With the exception of Mike Zagava, none of you are experts in this field. It bears noting that Don Deppner was quoted in the Canby Current today saying that, is that a hand, Kamala?
Yep, time.
I was like, I think I see you out of the corner of my eye. Colin Millison. Dear Canby School Board, I would like to start by thanking you for looking out for the best interests of our students. Having a safe and healthy learning environment is critical to their development. Both my wife and I grew up in Canby, have 2 parents and a grandparent that have worked in Canby schools and experienced a great education in Canby. We have 4 boys ourselves, 2 of them school age at the moment, who were previously enrolled at Eccles, a school we loved. Over the past few years, we have seen the supercharged political environment begin to show up in the classroom to a much greater extent. I know many others likely join us in saying that we find it unprofessional and inappropriate for a teacher to express their own political beliefs, direct or implied, in the classroom. Using a quote from Mike Zagava from our recent school board meeting, it is the teacher's job to teach students how to think, not what to think. Sharing political memes. It has come to our attention that a teacher recently shared a political meme in their classroom. This specific meme said, quote, "I don't think cops should have guns because then nobody would get shot," end quote. Posting a meme like this as art is not a lesson. It is sharing a politically charged agenda that should be discussed at home instead of in the classroom. In addition, and possibly even more concerning, is that when this issue was brought up to Superintendent Goodall, Superintendent Goodall found no issue with this quote lesson, end quote. Displaying BLM or black and blue posters in the classroom. Not describing the BLM movement as political is absolutely and completely ridiculous. Any and all material and discussions related to the movement belong at home, not in the classroom. Parents and board members should be able to view the curriculum. As a parent, if I have a question about a lesson, I should be able to see what is going to be taught to my children. Last school year, for example, we wanted information about what a group called, quote, Safe Kids, end quote, was going to be teaching our children. Getting access to these lessons beforehand meant being in school office, reading them during school hours only. We were told we could not take any pictures of the lessons, get copies of any part, view the curriculum online, or attend the lessons when they were taught in the classroom. What are they trying to hide with such lack of transparency? This is from Danielle Walters. To the Canby School Board regarding issues of equity in the Canby School District. 1, censorship of teachers versus academic freedom. 2, hypothetical changes to school board policy in order for some parents to bypass working with teachers and school administrators. As a parent and teacher in the Canby School District, I am writing to inform you that I'm appalled with the discussion I heard regarding political speech in schools. The lawyer from OSBA was clear in the rules regarding political speech in schools. If a teacher violated one of those rules, there are processes in place for dealing with this. However, based on what I heard at the board meeting, it is my understanding that the image that spurred much of this conversation was not, by legal definition, political speech. It was simply something that struck a nerve with a parent. The words of one of my Canby School District colleagues clearly state my line of thinking. I just have to wonder if our school board, who has been elected to serve a district with the tagline, all students, all abilities, all opportunities, is going down the road of banning curriculum and speech, which includes and values the life experiences of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, or of our gay, lesbian, and transgender students. As educators, we are charged with educating all our students. Although I understand everyone is entitled to their opinion, a 2015 quote by writer Robert Jones Jr. sums up why we as teachers, we will fight for the representation for all students in our class. We can disagree and still love each other unless, that's quote. The quote is, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and my right to exist. I strongly disagree with the end quote. I strongly disagree with the hypothetical changes to the school board policy regarding parents addressing grievances directly with the school board rather than following the process of working with teachers, school administrators, and the superintendent. This policy is a serious matter of equity where parents with, quote, friends on the board, end quote, or those who are positioned with greater resources and status in the community have greater access to influence board members based on their privilege. While board members play a vital role in running an effective school district, board members do not have an ongoing relationship with students, parents, or the actual situation. All students and families.
Hi.
Okay. Sarah, since I'm starting to stumble, I need a drink of water. You want to take over?
Definitely. Thanks, Angie. The next is from David Jealous. I am concerned by what I heard at the last school board meeting. As teachers, it is our academic imperative to provide the students with facts and expose them to different perspectives and ideas so that they can engage in critical thinking and make decisions for themselves. We are professionals and we are thoughtful about the instructional choices that we make so that they are appropriate for our students' learning goals. We are also very careful not to push our personal political views onto students. That being said, controversial topics will be covered because everyone has different perspectives, experiences, and triggers. This equilibrium is part of learning, and controversial topics should not be avoided because they make people uncomfortable. They should be viewed as an opportunity for conversation. This is why teachers promote open communication between ourselves, our students, and their parents. I would hope that if a parent or school board member has a concern about something that has occurred in my classroom, they have a conversation with me about it. I will always listen to concerns and respect parents' opinions and then share the context and reasoning behind my instructional decisions. By censoring topics in schools and publicly calling teachers out for their professional decisions is a dangerous road that will directly and negatively impact our students and the community. We need your support to combat this kind of adversarial relationship and misinterpretation of our job as teachers. Thank you for your time and consideration. Next is Dean Mason. As you all know, or certainly should know, there has been extensive discussion in Canby, privately, publicly, and on social media about events and policies at Canby High School. It is no secret that our classrooms have become a center for the promotion of certain political ideologies. It is also no secret that there are concentrated efforts to keep parents in the dark about exactly what is being promoted by Canby High School teachers, and even school board members are being pressured to refrain from asking questions. Anyone who is paying attention, and I assure you there are far more than you know, can see that these bullying tactics are intended to silence critics and intimidate parents and responsible school board members. Let me remind you that the school and the school board answer to not only the parents, but the voters of Canby who pay the bills. Let me also assure you that any effort to bully, pressure, or intimidate anyone who is asking questions, seeking information, or standing up for the best interests of the students of Canby will be met with a concentrated and well-organized opposition. The school board is chosen by the people of the city to represent the shareholders. Those are the students, parents, and taxpayers of Canby. The board and parents have every right and indeed the obligation to have unfettered access to curriculum, displays, textbooks, lesson plans, and anything else introduced into the classroom. I urge you in the strongest possible terms to resist any effort to prevent you from having access to and sharing information you need to guarantee that our students are receiving the best possible education free from political pressure. Next is Diane Swaggerty. To the CSD School Board, I am saddened by what I heard said at the last school board meeting. The positive relationship between students, teachers, and parents is critical to a student's academic success. Please support our students by encouraging parents who have concerns to address them directly with teachers. We are professionals. We don't retaliate. We will listen, and then we will provide context for our educational decisions. And in the process of sharing perspectives, the relationship between parents and teachers will strengthen. But we need your support. Please help us do our job, not get in the way of it. Next is Gabriela Gutierrez. I am saddened by what I heard said at the last school board meeting. The positive relationship between teachers, students, and parents is critical to a student's academic success. Please support our students by encouraging parents who have concerns to address them directly with teachers. We are professionals. We don't retaliate. We will listen, and then we will provide context for our educational decisions. And in the process of sharing perspectives, the relationship between parents and teachers will strengthen. But we need your support. Please help us do our job, not get in the way of it. Next is Heather Anderson. To the CSD School Board, I know many of you personally and professionally as we are part of the same parenting community raising our children in Canby. We have also decided to serve our community of Canby with our strengths and professional leadership. I am writing today because of what was said in the last board meeting and the hypothetical changes to school board policy, contract language discussed, and the backlash of public criticism of teachers. The positive relationship between students, teachers, and parents is critical to a student's academic success. You can support our students by publicly encouraging parents who have concerns to address them directly with teachers and the building principals, following the protocol of our established policy. Please put your trust and advocacy in the process of disciplined, thoughtful dialogue through private conversations and not public trials for teachers. In doing so, please find out the educational context of our educational decisions and encourage parents to do the same. Our classrooms are dynamic places and political topics may come up, even brought up by our students. We teach students to be critical thinkers, to analyze objectively and evaluate issues based on the evidence before judgments are made. This higher level thinking process is impeded by censorship. I agree with a statement made last week by board member Mike Zagava. Teachers teach students how to think, not what to think. The process of bringing up concerns and criticism of our curriculum and methods is already established. It is set to support and provide structure for our community of administrators, teachers, parents, and students when those concerns arise. I am deeply unnerved by one of the reasons this issue was brought to a public forum. Fear of retaliation is, at best, a perceived notion and not fact. Retaliation, especially with our students with whom we strive to develop positive relationships and become positive people in our lives, would be counterproductive and unprofessional. Fear of anything should not inform policy change. However, facts and evidence of retaliation are a different matter. Next is Jack Starrett. Dear members of the Canby School Board, it has been brought to my attention, been brought to the attention of myself and many other members of the community that there are several issues currently rearing their heads within the Canby School District. The first being the use of the classroom as a political stage in which teachers spread their ideologies and values to the young, impressionable minds of our youth. The second being the strong-arm tactics being used by teachers and administration to intimidate members of the school board to attempt to keep them from asking much-needed questions. While it is no secret nor surprise that the classroom has been used by ideologies for decades to spread their own principles and philosophies, it is by no means a condonable action. It is, however, surprising that the employees and administration of the district are so brazen and arrogant in their interaction with the board. The board as an entity exists to oversee the employees and ensure that the desires of the taxpayers are being properly met. The board does not exist, as it seems many believe, to rubber stamp the whims, wishes, and desires of the administration and teachers. I am aware that there are many other members of the community who feel as strongly as I do, if not even more so. I would urge the board to remember that they are the ones who are in charge. If change is not made to the politicization of the classroom or to the mafia-like tactics of the administration, change can and will be made by the citizens. Next is Jacqueline Carter. Dear board members, it has come to my attention that there has been politicizing in our classrooms. I will cut right to the chase and say that I am strongly opposed to this. Our political climate being what it is right now is a pretty popular topic among everyone. However, for teachers to shape our children's minds in one direction or another regarding these topics is completely unethical and unacceptable. I am a general manager, and as a vendor to my customers, I will say that I will not and would never discuss politics with them. I view that as completely unprofessional and disrespectful. As a citizen of Canby, I consider my family and my children customers of the school district as we are paying for their services. Part of those services consist of professionalism in the classroom. There may be arguments from the teachers and/or administrators regarding current events, subjects, and that teachers are trying to engage the children. If that is the case, can you guarantee the teachers will remain objective and impartial, that they will simply play devil's advocate to each student's opinion or statement to encourage healthy conversation and not one-sided? I believe it was referenced that this is considered academic freedom. I would like to have someone explain to me the definition of academic freedom, what it entails, and how the district will regulate it. This in quotes, picture that was shared during an art class has no business even being on display. The definition of art simply states, quotes, the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form, such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power, unquote. Quote, the various branches of creative activity, such as painting, music, literature, and dance, end quote. This picture is the farthest thing from art. It doesn't simply let the viewer come to their own conclusion or opinion about it, but steers the opinion in a certain direction. No thinking involved. The picture. All right, Angie, this is my last one, and then I'll switch it over. The next is Jamie Vega Gomez to the CSD School Board. I am writing to express my alarm over the recent conversations about political speech in schools that took place during a school board meeting. The very idea of making individual teachers and their curriculum a matter of public discussion at board meetings is extremely worrisome, and I also find the idea of a family being afraid of retaliation on the part of the teacher to be totally without merit. There is already a process in place for families to express their concern about something that is happening in the classroom, particularly as it relates to lesson content. First, they are always welcome to come to the teacher directly so that he or she can address and hopefully resolve their concern. If, after having a conversation with the teacher, the parents do not feel that the problem has been resolved, they can discuss the issue further with the school administrator. Whatever the outcome of these conversations, we as teachers are professionals, and we will not engage in retaliation against a student or family, regardless of what their personal opinions are. Teachers are highly qualified professionals who hold a bachelor's degree and often a master's degree in education. I teach middle school social studies because I have the following qualifications: about a bachelor's degree in history and a master's degree in secondary education, with a concentration in teaching history. Obtaining these degrees entailed many years of post-secondary education that trained me to, among other things, make informed decisions about what and how I teach my students. In addition to rigorous training, teachers are obligated to follow state standards, many of which cover issues that may be considered controversial by some. Concerns about the legitimacy of state standards should be addressed to the Oregon Department of Education, not an individual teacher carrying out his or her job. Listening to the previous board meeting, I wonder how familiar some board members are with the Oregon standards. For your reference, I'm attaching a copy of the standards pertaining to my subject and grade level, 7th and 8th grade social studies. Again, those who find these standards controversial should direct their concerns to the state, not to the teachers.
Stop.
Thanks, Kamala.
Okay, before I continue reading, we have two more people to read. One we missed the part of the email saying that requesting to read, and the other is Chris, who had technical difficulties earlier. So I hope you are there, Chris. I'm going to see if it works this time. Are you there?
There we go. Can you hear me this time?
We can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Technology, am I right? Thanks for giving me another shot here.
No problem.
I'm not an educator. I have 3 kids at the Canby School District. I live in Canby, and I was appalled at the faux outrage exhibited by some board members at the last meeting. From the comments from the last meeting, I can only assume that a few of you don't think my kids are smart enough to think critically when presented with different viewpoints. And that tells me that you might be unqualified and unprepared to sit on a school board. Because what I'm seeing is participating in political theater. And while accusing teachers of pushing an agenda, I think that some are projecting their own behavior because you took an image out of context on purpose and because of your own personal reaction to it, not because of its educational value. Ironically, the image is proving itself to be art by eliciting such a strong reaction in discourse, which is what good art does. And the behavior demonstrates a complete lack of intellectual curiosity and the ease of which you want to censor and restrict First Amendment rights and academic freedom is unbecoming of school board members. The concern from those who talked last week that it's not on the education our children are provided, but it's an opportunity for them to push personal and political agendas into the classroom. And our children are being treated like pawns in ideological power games. But I don't know why, maybe so they can go back and speak at more political conventions and toot their own horns. So if you want to evaluate what individual teachers are doing, and this goes to all their friends that they had send in letters that we've heard tonight, go back to school, get your master's degree in educational administration and become a school principal. Until then, I think that the job of you guys should be on policy and graduation rates. And I also think that there's going to be some fierce opposition for some re-elections in 2021 and 2023. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Chris. Now I'm going to have Nikki Salisbury, or Salzberg, sorry, I'm trying to read my own chicken scratch. Hi, Nikki, are you there?
Hi, yes, it's Salisbury. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Many years ago, there was a bullying issue at my grade level. I was accused of having a class vote to decide who the biggest bully in the class was and sending them to the principal. It was devastating to think that people thought I was capable of treating children that way. Fortunately, the rumor was taken care of privately with the parent involved and the misunderstanding was cleared up. I can imagine the damage to my reputation if that rumor had been shared and documented in public video and written documents. It would have followed me for years, if not the rest of my teaching career. Teachers deserve the professional courtesy of private conversations about parent and community concerns, not years of, wasn't that the teacher who was accused of? I wonder what happened with that. There are policies and protocol in place for these conversations to happen. I am asking that the current protocol and policies stay in place and that they are followed so that concerns are addressed in a way that will not damage my reputation needlessly and recklessly. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Great. I'll start reading again. This is from Janie Brow. To the CSD School Board, I am disappointed with the recent discussion brought to attention by school board members in regards to, quote, political speech in schools, end quote, and the idea of censorship within the classroom. We are professionals and we are capable of not pushing our political agenda onto students. But this does not mean that these topics won't naturally arise within our classrooms. As a social worker who is new to the district and grew up within this community, I feel deeply concerned at the idea of censorship in regards to content. And if we move toward this model, not only will our students be negatively impacted, but this will be a disservice to the community as a whole. Please support our students by encouraging parents who have concerns to address them directly with our educators. We will listen, and then we will provide examples for our educational decisions. And in the process of sharing perspectives, the relationship between parents and teachers will strengthen, but we need your support in this collaboration. Please help us do our job, not get in the way of it. Thank you. Just reading the note at the top of this one. Jennifer Zerke, school board members. I am highly concerned about the discussion at the last board meeting regarding political speech in schools. If a teacher violated one of these rules, there are processes in place for dealing with this. However, from what I could glean from this discussion, the curriculum was not about political speech, but about topics taken out of context that struck a nerve with some people. There is a difference. I am interested in knowing what was so politically charged about the situation. Since there is a law in place, as the OSBA lawyer explained, I can only assume that CSD teachers are not engaging in a political speech by the legal definition. So I have to wonder what 3 of our school board members are actually concerned about. I can't help but wonder if part of this move to change policy around limiting teachers' academic freedom is an effort to censor the history of historically underserved communities, such as BIPOC or LGBTQ. Calling the presence of these people and their stories in the curriculum politically charged in an effort to censor their voices is unacceptable. I certainly hope that this is not what the school board is trying to do. As a teacher, if there's a concern about something that has occurred in my classroom, I would expect a conversation regarding my reasoning around how this topic came up and how it related to my educational objectives. Teachers have pedagogical purposes for what they cover and how they cover it. It is our job to make sure that the students in our community are learning the skills to become critical thinkers. And sometimes that requires working through challenging texts and concepts with which not everyone may agree. That's okay. We often come across information we don't agree with, but we need the skills to know how to process and deal with that. Limiting what a student encounters in school only limits them and their ability to deal with such information in the outside world. I want my students to have every skill available to them to combat such slings and arrows. I would hope that the school board would want the same. This is from Jill Rayburn. Hello, Canby School Board members. I sent an email to you all on July 6, 2020 regarding no politics at school. One member responded to me at that time and I appreciated that. It is now October 13th, 2020, and I am hearing about politics being brought into the classroom by teachers to our online students. So 3 months later, I am finding myself having to ask once again, please no politics or social issues in classes that are not social studies. There really is no place for teachers to push more things onto our children besides the subject they are assigned to teach. My husband and I are quite capable of educating our children on this aspect of life. I beg you to please listen. I'm a mom of a current junior and my son graduated this past spring. I've spent numerous hours volunteering for our wonderful Canby School District, from Dibbles testing to running the annual jogathon to PTA involvement to helping create the Canby Theater Boosters. I have done this all because I care about each and every one of the students in this district. Thank you so much for listening. This is from Joel Ekdahl. To the Canby School Board, I am saddened by what I heard said at the last school board meeting. The positive relationship between students, teachers, and parents is critical to a student's academic success and something I take very seriously. At Canby High School, I teach 2 English classes that regularly bring students into contact with controversial subjects. In these classes, we read classics such as The Odyssey, Romeo and Juliet, Animal Farm, The Crucible, and To Kill a Mockingbird. But we also shine light upon these stories that are often overlooked or forgotten. Whether it's English 1, where we expose students to stories written by authors of color, or American literature, where we discuss the historical context of slavery, colonialism, patriarchy, and poverty, issues of race, gender, and class play a central role in our curriculum. For this reason, I openly encourage debate and argumentation in my classroom. As a teacher, my job isn't to persuade or indoctrinate, but rather to foster and facilitate discussion. I see it as my duty to expose students to important pieces of literature and to teach them how to ask good questions and to support their beliefs with research and rhetorical skills. That is the art of good writing. That is the art of persuasion. However, if I and other teachers fear being censored or even being fired for discussing controversial content in the classroom, these engaging debates will recede and they will be replaced by rote work that is both boring and less relevant to students. This will undoubtedly impact student attendance and participation. More than ever, students need a safe place to share their perspectives on tough social and political issues. There will certainly be disagreements, but our founding fathers understood so well, open debate is the first step to a more perfect union. It is my hope that we can work through our disagreements and come to some consensus. That is the promise of our Constitution and the promise of public education in this great country. Therefore, please support our students and encourage parents who have concerns to address them directly with teachers. We are professionals and we don't retaliate against students who think differently than we do. We will listen and we will provide context for our educational decisions. And in the process, we will strengthen our relationship with parents and students, but we need your help. This is from Kate Shively. Canby School District Board members, I am highly disappointed with the discussion I heard regarding political speech in schools. The lawyer from OSBA was clear in the rules regarding political speech in schools. If a teacher violated one of these rules, there are processes in place for dealing with this. However, this discussion was not about political speech, but about topics, images, and articles taken out of context that struck a nerve with some people. There is a difference. The positive relationship between students, teachers, and parents is critical to a student's academic success. Please support our students by encouraging parents who have concerns to address them directly with teachers. We are professionals. We don't retaliate. We will listen and then we will provide context for our educational decisions And in the process of sharing perspectives, the relationship between parents and teachers will strengthen, but we need your support. Please help us do our job and not get in the way of it. The message we, your educators, heard at the last board meeting was that you, the board, do not trust or respect your educators. I ask that you evaluate that within yourselves. Your role is to support education of Canby students, not put teachers on public trial. Your role is to ensure students are educated wholly, not to censor the history of historically underserved communities such as BIPOC or LGBTQ. Calling the presence of these people and their stories and curriculum as, quote, politically charged, end quote, in an effort to censor their voices is unacceptable. New is not bad. Challenging views is not a political persuasion. There are so many things that the school board could be doing right now to support students, staff, and families. This isn't one of them. It's from Kathy Hamill. Dear CSD Board of Directors, I found the last school board meeting to be deeply concerning. The justification used for many proposed changes to both the school board policy and possibly contract language was that parents are concerned about, quote, retaliation, end quote. I'm not sure where this is coming from. As a teacher, it is my job to faithfully teach all students. The idea that CSD teachers are pushing their personal political bias on students is unfounded, but even if a parent were to disagree with me over the use of an image, book, or discussion topic in the classroom and felt that it was, quote, political in nature, end quote, or inappropriate, also in quotes, I would never, quote, retaliate, end quote, against the parent for expressing their concerns. I would welcome the opportunity to have a discussion so the parent could understand the context of why it was used, and it would be valuable for me as an educator to hear why this parent was concerned about the lesson. In fact, last year, a parent brought up a concern over a song that was sung in 5th grade music class. Deportee, Plane Wreck at Los Gatos by Woody Guthrie, and the class conversation that ensued when analyzing the lyrics of the song. My teaching partner had a wonderful conversation with this parent. After listening to her concerns, my partner explained the history of the song and how our music teacher values representing multiple cultures, perspectives, and eras of history in her music class, which was her purpose in choosing this song, which is a protest song from the late 1940s about the treatment of Mexican farm workers. This song was chosen for a music program which included other historical tunes like We're in the Money and Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. After our conversation, this parent went the extra mile by doing further research with her child, and the student was able to share in class, adding more richness to the class conversation. Hearing other people's perspectives helps us grow as people, and it's especially helpful as a teacher when I learn more about the various perspectives in the community I teach. I understand that direct communication is not easy for a lot of people, but as long as everyone is following our district civility clause, teachers welcome the opportunity to discuss concerns and strengthen the teacher-parent relationship, just as all of us teachers do with the majority of our parents every school year. I was just thinking this might be the only time my talking too quickly is actually of value. Everyone always tells me to slow down. Not tonight. Sarah, I'll do one more and then kick it back to you. Lori Nipping. Dear members of the Canby School Board, one would have to live under a very large rock to not know that we are living in an emotionally charged time with the upcoming presidential election. The political climate is especially volatile because of racial and social issues that, in our opinion, have been orchestrated to create even more division in our country, states, and communities. We have had so much discussion in our home about these issues, and we as parents impart not only the facts, but also our viewpoint on these issues to our children. This is our God-given right and responsibility as parents. Today, there are some educators who have decided they have the right and responsibility to inform our children not only how to think, but what to believe. And some go so far as to criticize or keep children out of classroom discussions if they don't share the same viewpoints as the teacher. This is not their role. The controversial meme recently showed to 11 and 12-year-old students was inappropriate and not actually art. True art has no need for text. It leaves the viewer the freedom to have their own thoughts and emotions about it. This photo included language that is in direct opposition to our Constitution, and no explanation about both sides of this particular issue was given. It appears this, quote, art, end quote, was included because it reflects the educator's own views on this controversial and highly political subject. Discussing politics is fine in school in the right context, when all of the information is given to students and when it pertains to the subject. Even within academic freedom, there are limits to what educators have the right to talk about. They should be very careful to avoid controversial matters that are unrelated to the class subject. Our children deserve a rich and diverse education, not indoctrination. On that note, parents have every right to know what their children are learning. We have signed many syllabuses in our home at the request of teachers. If a parent has a concern about something a teacher is presenting to their class, they should have a right to discuss that concern with a board member. If there is something in the policy that contradicts that viewpoint, we would like to be presented with a copy of the policy and it should be changed. It sounds nice to bring a subject up directly with the teacher or principal, but having personal experience with this, a parent's voice is not always heard. Many times, there is little or no response even from the principal. Furthermore, we recently wrote to the superintendent about an agenda item in a previous board meeting. Great, Sarah, you ready?
I am.
Take it away.
All right, then the next is Kevin Starrett. Dear Canby School Board members, as you well know, or certainly should know, there has been extensive discussion in Canby, privately, publicly, on social media about events and policies at Canby High School. It is no secret that our classrooms have become a center for the promotion of certain political ideologies. It is also no secret that there are concentrated efforts to keep parents in the dark about exactly what is being promoted by the Canby High School teachers, and even school board members are being pressured to refrain from asking questions. Anyone who is paying attention, and I assure you there are far more than you know, can see that these bullying tactics are intended to silence critics and intimidate parents and responsible school board members. Let me remind you that the school and the school board answer to not only the parents, but the voters of Canby who pay the bills. Let me also assure you that any effort to bully, pressure, or intimidate anyone who is asking questions, seeking information, or standing up for the best interest of the students of Canby will be met with a concentrated and well-organized opposition. The school board is chosen by the people of the city to represent the shareholders. Those are the students, parents, and taxpayers of Canby. The board and parents have every right and indeed the obligation to have unfettered access to the curriculum, displays, textbooks, and lesson plans, and anything else introduced into the classroom. I urge you in the strongest possible terms to resist any effort to prevent you from having access to and sharing information you need to guarantee that our students are receiving the best possible education free from political pressure. Next is Kimberly Barbara. Dear members of the Canby School Board, while I appreciate the time and energy invested in cultivating an open discussion surrounding the current educational climate of our schools, I am genuinely distressed by several exchanges voiced at the last school board meeting. The notion that Canby educators would retaliate against students in response to parents raising concerns about lessons is troubling and prompts me to wonder why such poor faith is placed in teachers and their on-site administrators. And if parents did not feel comfortable addressing issues with specific educators directly, then why were department leaders and/or building administrators not addressed as the next rational, mature step in the process? As adults, we should attempt to model the value of giving others the benefit of the doubt and working to resolve conflicts directly from the ground up, rather from the top down, in an effort to foster communal trust, empathy, and mutual respect. But many of the concerns raised during the last board meeting were fast-tracked above the heads of those in a position to speak firsthand about the issues, and the opportunity for a meaningful discussion that strengthens the relationship between home and school was undermined. This approach not only sets a hypocritical example for our children, it also unnecessarily escalates the issues and is counterproductive to our mission as educators, parents, and board members working to empower students as critical thinkers, capable of resolving conflicts in a healthy manner. In addition to upholding thoughtful one-on-one discourse as the appropriate means for resolving individual differences, I sincerely hope that you will also advocate for and defend children's intellectual freedom in the K-12 environment, the protection of the rights to read, to listen, to write, and to speak beliefs and differing unpopular opinions. The defense of a child's right to intellectual freedom is not intended to supplant a parent or guardian's wishes about how their child interacts with the world. Taking the opposite stance, however, and attempting to constrain other students beyond their own child's exposure to viewpoints that parents disagree with constitutes censorship and should not be tolerated. Honest and Next is Kristen Dana. To the members of the Canby School Board, I am a professional and I am very conscientious of not pushing my political views onto students. I have had numerous students ask me about who I would vote for, what religion I am, and even the controversial question, am I a duck or a beaver? I plead the fifth. However, that doesn't mean that controversial topics won't come up in the classroom. Everyone has a different perspective. What concerns me could be completely different or a non-event for someone else. I've had these issues in my own life with people I love and respect. This is why I feel teachers are able to promote open communication between themselves, their students, and parents. Censoring topics in schools is a dangerous road that will directly and negatively impact our students. As a teacher, if a parent, community member, Canby employee, or school board member has a concern about something that has occurred in my classroom, I would hope that they could have a conversation with me about it, respect me and my educational expertise to listen to my reasoning of how this topic came up and how it related to my educational objectives. Instead of using the process already established to have a private conversation with a staff member, or better yet, trusting the administration when they've looked into a concern and find no wrongdoing. The school board now wants the ability to make individual teachers and their curriculum agenda items at a public board meeting. Isn't your job to support the education of Canby students and not put teachers on public trial? Next is Kristen Morris. Political bias in the classroom. After listening to the last school board meeting, I knew I had to weigh in on my experience with political biases in the classroom, as well as the existing policy to deal with it. I have personal knowledge of, parentheses, call it what it is, indoctrination of our kids for at least 10 years. My first experience was in Ackerman Middle School when a teacher awarded extra credit for students to attend a Democratic town hall, a Democrat candidate's town hall, but nothing for the Republican. In the following years, my kids relayed incident after incident where teachers spoke of the evils of capitalism, lauded socialism and communism, openly mocked and disparaged our current president, and ridiculed students who held conservative or faith-based beliefs. I have been irate more times than I can remember, but my kids never wanted me to raise the issue for fear of retaliation. As school board members, this should be alarming to you for a number of reasons. One, it is a direct violation of ORS 260.432 that Haley Purcell highlighted at the last meeting. Teachers are prohibited from promoting or opposing candidates, and quite frankly, it is my position that a student should not have any idea as to the political leanings of a teacher. I am in complete agreement with Mike Zagaba that teachers should teach how to think, not what to think. Teachers are overstepping their bounds. 2, the policy in place for reporting investigating violations by teachers does not allow anonymity for students or parents. This policy needs to be changed. Parents have no say in which teachers are employed by the district, but we do get to elect our school board members. The board is comprised of our friends and neighbors. Therefore, we should be allowed to voice our concerns to them to research and rectify a problem. As the policy stands now, protections are only in place for the educators. 3, I was concerned that BLM was not considered political and could be allowed in teachers. Next is Linda Newhouse. To the Canby Board of Directors, I am appalled that we have school board members who are leading the charge on a conversation about censorship in our schools. Censorship hurts students. The academic freedom clause in the contract provides teachers the freedom to make choices in order to best teach his or her students. It is there to ultimately serve kids. Your efforts would be better spent discussing how to support academics in our schools, not impede them. All right, I'm stumbling enough, Angie. This is going to be my last one before I switch it over. Next is Lori Boatwright. Dear school board members, recently it was brought to my attention regarding the political and BLM agenda in the classroom by our teachers here in Canby. As a parent of 2 children that went through Canby schools and a grandparent of another, I am appalled that teachers feel they have the right to discuss anything political with my children, grandchildren that is outside the subjects they are teaching. If my child is in a political science class or history class, then they should stay on the topic at hand and not include any of their personal preferences. If a child knows how you are voting, you are not, I repeat, not doing your job. I went through my entire education and never knew how my teachers voted. They should not be discussing the elections, BLM, Proud Boys, Antifa, back the blue or gun control at all. This would include pictures on the walls, videos, or clothing they are wearing, etc. This is not an unusual request. I work for an employer of over 50,000, and we are not allowed to wear or discuss these items at work, and my children, grandchildren should not be indoctrinated with their teachers' personal beliefs either. My understanding is that a teacher shared a picture during an art class asking students if a young Black boy with his back turned and making a statement like, "I don't think cops should have guns because then nobody would get shot," is completely inappropriate. This goes against our Second Amendment rights and what we teach our children at home. I'm a member of the gun club, and this really makes me hot that this is being pushed. Both my grandkids shoot trap for the high school, and you are allowing this to be pushed right under their noses. The children today don't know how to reason or think because the teachers are pushing one side of a story and not giving the benefit to ask questions from the other. I am also hearing that some of them actually treat the conservative kids poorly if they do not agree with their mindset. Our test scores in Canby have gone down drastically from when my children were attending school. I would think that maybe if we spent more time on the basics and less on the politics.
It's from Lori Craig. I am highly disappointed with the discussion I heard regarding political speech in schools, end quote. The lawyer from OSVA was clear in the rules regarding political speech in schools. If a teacher violated one of these rules, there are processes in place for dealing with this. However, this discussion was not about political speech, but about topics, images, and articles taken out of context that struck a nerve with some people. There is a difference. This is from Linda Robert. To the Canby District School Board, at a time when there is so much struggle in our educational system, I am deeply dismayed that instead of rallying around our schools and focusing on what students need to succeed in this alien world of online learning, some board members are choosing focus on issues that are causing tension between the board and the schools. What is even more upsetting is that professionalism and trust, which are a foundational block for an effective organization, are eroding. I have taught for 31 years, over 20 of them for Canby, and in that time, I've always felt like I had the trust, support of the district and the board to challenge my students to become critical thinkers. As a 7th and 8th grade English teacher, I have always felt responsible for putting questions in front of students that elicit one to think of more than one view, share thoughts, and debate. This is how one learns to become a critical thinker, to be exposed to many different ways of looking at the same topic and develop one's independent view on the matter. I have taught To Kill a Mockingbird and discussed racism, Fahrenheit 451, and discussed the role of maintaining humanness in a totalitarian government, Outsiders, and discussed the violence of gangs and the reasons teenagers are drawn to them, Night, and discuss the horrors of the Holocaust. I could go on, but the point is, I have always felt trusted by my administration to teach students how to think by presenting ideas that give them a chance to develop independent beliefs from those around them and the importance of doing so. On top of the lack of trust, I can only shake my head in wonder that anyone would think that publicly challenging a teacher, parent, student, board member, administrator, etc. would be acceptable. How is that even productive? Doesn't that just cause more tension and distrust? How do we function as a district if we cannot expect that hard conversations can be had between teachers and parents, teachers and students, parents and administrators, etc.? As educators, we hope that parents and students will advocate for the change they would like to see and open a line of dialogue where, as a team, parent, student, teacher, we can come to an understanding about issues that arise. It is not that school board. I felt it coming that time. Canby, well, hold on, I just figure out this is from Lynn Olson. Canby School District Board. I want to thank you for taking on the role of school board. Surely each of you chose to run for your position with the idea of supporting education in Canby. The balance between the needs of teachers, students, and the community is your focus when it comes to concerns. Such a role requires balance. It can be defined as a stabilizer or seen to adjust as needed. The community of Canby, the school board, and its staff have been faced with a new role in education. The learning curve with online learning is high and requires that sense of balance so that teachers, students, and the community are supported. You, the school board, took on this position to support and hear the voices of all involved and to maintain a high level of integrity as our representatives and as we, the teachers of CSD, uphold the same. Recently, the stress of the situation took a surprising turn, with individuals addressing the board with their concerns without going through proper channels. We, the teachers, depend on you to adhere to the guidelines required of the board to provide balance and to support teachers, students, and the community. These guidelines were ignored when board members added fuel to the situation. I've been a teacher and staff member of CSD for 27 years and a community member for 40 years. I have appreciated many times the opportunity to speak with colleagues and board members and feel supported. The joy of teaching social studies provides me the chance to engage students in progressive dialogue, to understand the benefit of addressing differences of opinion in an appropriate format, thus allowing them to grow as thinkers and citizens. Students learn about the extraordinary privilege they have to do just that, as guaranteed in our Constitution. Yet, with that said, they also learn that the freedom of speech we so cherish has its limitations when someone's integrity is damaged. When a board member or community member goes to social media to discuss a concern by addressing a staff member without their knowledge, that line has been crossed. Why has the board accepted this of its members? Why has the board swayed from the correct course to answer the questions of the community in an appropriate setting? There is no good reason. Never would I have expected a board member to be an example for our students on how social media is used inappropriately. The balance has been. This is from Margaret Lever. We are professionals. To the members of the Canby School Board, we are professionals and we are very conscious of not pushing our political views onto students. However, that doesn't mean that controversial topics won't come up in the classroom. Because everyone has a different perspective, what concerns one person could be something completely neutral for someone else. This is why teachers promote open communication between themselves, their students, and parents. Censoring topics in schools is a dangerous road that will directly and negatively impact our students. This is from Mary Hayes. To the members of the Canby School Board, we are professionals and we are very conscious of not pushing our political views onto students. However, that doesn't mean that controversial topics won't come up in the classroom. Because everyone has a different perspective, what concerns one person could be completely neutral for someone else. This is why teachers promote open communication between themselves, their students, and parents. Censoring topics in schools is a dangerous road that will directly and negatively impact our students. Communication is key, and if a student brings up a, quote, controversial topic, end quote, it would make my heart sad if I had to tell them that your school board doesn't allow us to talk about it. This would cause more confusion with students. My wish is that the school board would trust the teachers that they hire. If a parent is worried about something I say or is said in the class, that they come to me first and I can help them understand the context of what is said. This is from Matt Stewart. Dear board members, we have personally had issues with politics being brought into our children's classroom here in Canby. As parents, we feel we have the right to discuss anything political with our children, and that includes the candidates in the election, our amendment rights, and having conversations with our children regarding BLM, Proud Boys, Antifa, and Back the Blue. Our understanding is that a teacher shared a picture during, quote, art, end quote, class, asking students if a young Black boy with his back turned and making statements like, I don't think cops should have guns because then nobody would get shot, is completely inappropriate. It goes against our Second Amendment rights and what we teach our children at home. Further, we stand behind our family and friends in law enforcement. It is a teacher's job to teach the student how to think, not what to think. A teacher that teaches a class and their students don't know what their political views are is an educator doing their job. We have a high school student that was in government class at the high school. We were under the impression the class curriculum being taught would teach about how our government worked, branches of government, the Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, and our amendment rights. Instead, it turned into the first week of class, the teacher let our son know that he would not be recording any of the Zoom meetings, even if it was a requirement. He would not record them, stating that it infringed on privacy. In our opinion, that choice guards him for accountability. There was a poll he posted for the students to take, asking who they would elect in the upcoming election to, quote, get a feel for the class, end quote. At the end of the second week, the class time was spent participating in, quote, First Amendment Friday, end quote, where the teacher let the class have a free for all about the current events concerning Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and their hatred for the police. The teacher didn't interject, wouldn't offer another side, and for all intents and purposes, he lit the fuse and watched it burn. We contacted our son's IEP case manager and counselor after he called us upset and asked if he could leave the Zoom meeting. They were in agreement, knowing our son, his conservative views, him having family in law enforcement, and also knowing the teacher and his extreme and outspoken liberal views, that he should. This is from Megan Hochstetler. To the CSD board, I am very frustrated by what I heard said at the last school board meeting. The positive relationship between students, teachers, and parents is critical to a student's academic success. Please support our students by encouraging parents who have concerns to address them directly with teachers. We are professionals. We don't retaliate. We will listen, and then we'll provide context for our educational decisions. And in the process of sharing perspectives, the relationship between parents and teachers will strengthen. But we need your support. I had hoped to hear that you would support parent concerns by reinforcing parent-teacher communication rather than creating drama within this partnership. Please help us do our job, not get in the way of it. Let me find the name. This is from Michael and Shelley Vissers. Dear board members and Mr. Goodall, we have been in conversation with other Canby parents regarding politicizing in our classrooms by teachers. We believe politicizing does not belong in our classrooms, especially at the elementary level. At no time should a student know a teacher's political belief. It is important that if our teachers are in any way talking politics with students, that they should be taught both arguments and allow for a student to form their own opinion. As Mr. Zagava stated in the board meeting, quote, it's the teacher's job to teach the student how to think, not what to think, end quote. We couldn't agree more with Mr. Zagava. Politics should be left to be discussed at home with family members. We have heard countless times that kids have come home to their parents and say, quote, if you vote for a certain candidate, then my friends and their families will be deported, end quote. Should an 8-year-old really have to deal with that stress? The picture that was shown in the classroom was inappropriate. The teacher is crossing the line and taking away our Second Amendment rights. We will always teach my children to stand up for what they and our family believe in. Our kids deserve better than for our school district to squash our rights. The other topic that we would like to address is the nonsense that a parent cannot contact a school board member if they have a difficulty at school. The school board is elected by citizens of Canby. We as parents have a right to go to any school board member and discuss any problems that arise at school. We understand there's a policy in place to contact the teacher, principal, superintendent, and then contact a board member. This process does not always work. We worked for over 4 years to get the behavioral problems addressed at a local school. We followed your procedures and they did not work. The teacher's hands were tied. The principal gave an effort and tried to solve the problems, but needed district help. And the district told me there wasn't a problem, that they trusted the principal. After meetings with the superintendent and denying there was a problem, it gave us no choice but to get the school board involved. After 4 very long years, something was finally done when a brave teacher came forth and read a heart-wrenching letter. I will not follow that process again in the future. If we have a problem that needs involvement from the school board, I will contact them right away. The one good thing that has come out of the distance learning is that more parents are now involved with their children's education. Parents are now more aware than ever what their students are being taught and how it is an eye-opener for some. I believe 98% of our teachers, oh, Kamala, is that time? This is from Morgan Westenfeld. Members of the Canby School Board, it is truly concerning that we have board members who are leading the charge on a conversation about censorship in our schools. Censorship has hurt students. The academic freedom clause in the contract provides teachers the freedom to make choices in order how to best teach her students. It is there ultimately serve kids. Your efforts would be better spent discussing how to support academics in our schools, not impede them. As teachers, we know how to teach. To be blunt, there are very few board members who have ever taught in front of a class of students. Most of you haven't been in a public school classroom since you yourselves were students. I'd also like to call attention to the email reminders that are sent out before board meetings. In the past, the reminder about an upcoming board meeting was straight and to the point. Recently, since we've had the fires, there has been an addition to the emails. The sentence that specifically caught my attention was, statements should be brief and should not reflect adversely on the background, character, or motives of any individual. I can't help but think that last part was added because of statements that a specific board member made on her personal Facebook page. It is baffling to me you are arguing to be able to criticize teachers in a public forum when you do not want to be openly criticized yourselves. Lastly, thank you to the few board members who stood up for the teachers in our district. I appreciate you recognizing us as professionals and acknowledging how important it is for teachers to have academic freedom. I'll do one more, Sarah, and then you're back on. This is from, oh, we already did that one. Pierrette Tamlick, I can't see if that's an I or an L. To whom it may concern, I recently learned that our teachers are accused of teaching students to think critically regarding political parties and value systems. It is a privilege that our students are free to learn, to question fixed values, learn to be open-minded, learn to have compassion, and learn to debate instead of fight. It is a concern that public schools could become manipulated by groups for their personal values and beliefs. I do hope that all of you are taking it seriously and support our students and teachers to be and become critical, educated thinkers and citizens. They will have different ideas about right and wrong, and it's okay. That's a part of democracy. Estonia was occupied by Soviet Union. I grew up there. I know what censoring means, and I am sure that no teacher wants to have it here. I also believe that parents in Canby would like their children to grow up in democratic society versus society controlled by censorship and fear. Again, it is important to teach our students and be open-minded, regardless of their political views. Sadly, it feels more and more that even mentioning about one's differing views is already, quote, too much, end quote. I admire teachers who will push students to become critical thinkers. Thank you for your time. Sarah, you're
all right. Thank you, Angie. Next is Randall Byers. Dear board members, I have been made aware of conversations regarding political statements made in the classroom by some of the teachers in Canby schools. As a taxpayer and grandparent of a possible future student, I feel the discussion of political attitude should be left strictly to the parents of the students. The classroom should be devoted to apolitical, factual education. I've seen the picture that a student shared during an art class. It was of a young Black boy with his face to a wall, flanked by a statement on either side that supposedly came from the boy. I understand this particular teacher made more of a point of the text instead of the photograph, which may have been considered as art on its own without the added text. The gist of the text also ran counter to an amendment to our United States Constitution. I can't help but wonder if the class has studied or been taught about the Constitution enough so that they can formulate their own thoughts on statements or attitudes, pro or con. It was stated at a recent school board meeting, it's the teacher's job to teach the student how to think, not what to think, and I agree. On my way to attaining a bachelor's degree in education, I do not recall any of my professors ever recommending diversions into any subject area other than that of the class I was to present. Teaching one's own political beliefs to young children is highly unprofessional. It also takes away from time that should be devoted to approved curriculum. Allowing the board more transparency into what is to be presented in classes might also give the teachers more direction as to what is appropriate and eliminate future controversy. Thank you. Next is Ryan McCormick. To the Canby Board of Directors, I am highly disappointed with the discussion I heard regarding political speech in schools. The lawyer from OSBA was clear in the rules regarding political speech in schools. If a teacher violated one of these rules, there are processes in place for dealing with this. However, this discussion was not about political speech, but about topics, images, and articles taken out of context that struck a nerve with some people. There is a difference. Censoring topics in schools is a dangerous road that will directly and negatively impact our students. Furthermore, to have such a broad conversation in a public forum when an executive session was an option and without teacher voices was irresponsible. It has created the impression in the community of widespread political bias in our schools, though that is definitely not the case at all, creating a strain that has already become apparent since the last board meeting. Your actions carry weight, and unfortunately, your willingness to discuss vague accusations has made it tougher for our staff to do their jobs. Please consider the impacts of your actions as we're all trying to do the best for the kids of Canby. Finally, after seeing the lesson in question from the reporting by the Canby Current, this seems like an attempt to silence the perspectives of marginalized groups in our society and our community. As a school district that lists equity as one of its 4 goals of its academic vision, it is counterproductive and even harmful to silence these voices and not see them represented in the classroom for all of our students, especially our students of color. Next is Sandra Walk. Dear CSD School Board, I am saddened by what I heard said at the last school board meeting. The positive relationship between students, teachers, and parents is critical to a student's academic success. Please support our students by encouraging parents who have concerns to address them directly with teachers. We are professionals. We don't retaliate. We will listen, and then we will provide context for our educational decisions And in the process of sharing perspectives, the relationship between parents and teachers will strengthen. We need your support. Please help us do our job. Next is Sarah Douglas. To the Canby School Board, I am writing to inform you that I disagree with the hypothetical changes to school board policy and contract language discussed at the previous school board meeting. There are so many things that the school board could be doing right now to support students, staff, and families, and this isn't one of them. We are professionals and we are very conscious of not pushing our political views onto students. However, that doesn't mean that controversial topics won't come up in the classroom. Because everyone has a different perspective, what concerns one person could be something completely neutral for someone else. This is why teachers promote open communication between themselves, their students, and parents. Censoring topics in schools is a dangerous road that will directly and negatively impact our students. As a teacher, if a parent or school board member has a concern about something that has occurred in my classroom, then have a conversation with me about it. Respect me enough and my educational expertise to listen to my reasoning of how this topic came up and how it related to my educational objectives. I'm not sure why board members, instead of using the process already established to have a private conversation with a staff member, or better yet, trusting the administration when they've looked into a concern and find no wrongdoing, now want the ability to make individual teachers and their curriculum agenda items at public board meetings. Your job is to support the education of Canby students, not put teachers on trial. Next is Sarah Lockwood. To the CSD School Board, I am saddened by what I heard said at the last school board meeting. The positive relationship between students, teachers, and parents is critical to a student's academic success. Please support our students by encouraging parents who have concerns to address them directly with teachers. As a parent of a CSD graduate and a current CSD student and a teacher outside of the school district, I am sincerely concerned about the way in which the situation has been handled by individuals who know what the proper procedures are and allow their personal opinions to set aside following those procedures. If we know anything to be true of the school system and our children's success academically, we know that commitment to a positive and supportive environment will be the driver of success. When our children know that as parents, we will reach out and work with the teachers, then that we will engage in dialogue that is respectful and cognizant of one another's roles and remain open-minded, we strengthen the bond between teacher, family, and student and promote the positive concept of academic learning. This entire structure is leveled to the ground by circumventing the teacher and by insinuation that the school or the teacher is not a trustworthy or dedicated individual/institution. In this, the board has the responsibility to promote the use of proper procedures and not allow an already divisive time in history to create further division. You have the ability to set the stage, one where we set aside personal agenda or desire to see negative intentions and instead show parents and teachers that they remain part of a meaningful and important relationship circle for the ultimate success of the student. I sincerely hope that in future meetings, the board will show an understanding and support of academic freedom, of following guidance for proper procedures, and listening to the OSBA lawyer who stated clearly the rules of speech in the classroom. Better yet, that while students may come across controversial subjects in schools, parents are the check and balance for personal opinion, while teachers can and should be supported in providing information, perspective, and support our children in an ability to apply critical thinking skills. Perhaps, thanks, Kamala. This one's from Sarah Love. I was taken aback listening to the school board meeting on October 1st. The discussion of political speech in schools was deeply disappointing. The lawyer who presented gave an excellent summary of the rules around political speech in schools. If those rules are violated, there are ways of dealing with that, as there should be. Although we were not able to know the exact context of the emails and photos of perceived violations, it seems that they had more to do with topics or images than some disagreed with, rather than actual violations. This year, more than ever, caregivers and parents are privy to the discussions in the classroom. They may overhear a part of a discussion or hear something out of context that goes against their personal beliefs. If they are allowed to go directly to the board without speaking to the teacher, the element of trust is lost. They may fear retaliation from the teacher for their student. However, bypassing well-defined chains of communication directly to the top is unfair to the teacher and students. Allowing a teacher's lesson to be discussed in a public format without any communication with the employee shows a lack of respect and understanding for the jobs we do. The CSD motto is, quotes, all students, all abilities, all opportunities, end quotes. In addition, the ODE has instituted a rule that all students belong. In every classroom K-12, all students and families should be affirmed and respected. This includes age-appropriate lessons, books, and discussions around LGBTQ, gender identity, systemic racism, immigration policy, and looking at history with a critical lens. It means that students learn about systems and policies that disadvantage some while benefiting others. This is not political, it is about humanity. If students do not see people who look like them in the curriculum, or if the only time they do is during a certain month of the year, we are not including them fully. If we ignore some topics because they are sensitive, we show students in those groups that they only belong if they remain quiet. This policy could make these conversations more difficult. One of the goals of Thanks, Kamala. All right, this will be my last one, Angie. Next is Shannon Schrock. This fall, I informed the staff at Eccles that I was pulling my kids out of public school and choosing to homeschool instead. We are no longer part of the Canby School District, but we are still a part of the Canby community. And it was brought to my attention that there was a teacher who shared a picture during art class asking students if a young Black boy with his back turned and making statements like, quotes, I don't think cops should have guns because then nobody would get shot, end quote. This is completely inappropriate. After hearing about that assignment, I realized I should share some of the many reasons why I pulled my kids out of Eccles. In the spring, when the children were given packets to work at home, my son's 4th grade packet included a reading assignment that included a negative opinion about President Trump. It's good to have assignments about the current president and past presidents, but it's not acceptable to have children reading negative opinions about the president. I support sharing facts and letting children come to their own conclusions. Teachers should teach children how to think, not what to think. Canby is a tight-knit community. We share with each other what's going on in the schools, and word spreads quickly. As word spread, we are now becoming more alert to what is being taught to our children and to their peers. And now that we are alert, we are becoming alarmed. I hope you are too. Thank you to all of you for serving on the school board. The sacrifice of your time and your service is greatly appreciated.
Okay, we have another person who is going to read their own words. Tyler Smith, I'm just looking. There we go. Tyler, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Great, go ahead.
Thank you. I write today to the school board as the owner of a local law firm and a parent of children in the Canby School District. My law firm has specifically litigated these types of issues here in Canby and other school districts, so we offer a unique perspective from outside the school district. But any district policy which hides the complaints or allows the staff to sweep complaints under the rug or prevents the school board from being able to perform their oversight and policy role should be reconsidered because it interferes with the proper role of oversight of the school board. School board members are elected public officials who are accountable to the voters. The school board may hire and fire superintendents and all staff, and they're ultimately in charge of all district policies. So it's entirely appropriate for a board member to hear the complaints, bring the complaints to the board, and seek review or amend policy. Specifically in Canby, it's appropriate for the board to bring these current concerns up as policy problems have been longstanding, including concerns about anti-religious bias, inappropriate sexual school agendas, cover-ups, and denials of these kinds of activities, abuses, and politically charged actions by some teachers. So it's entirely appropriate for the board. For instance, at the last school Zoom meeting, there was denial and insistence that these things were not happening by staff and some school board members. Well, my law firm, I'd like to know if the superintendent has disclosed to the board that the high school was inappropriately censoring and prohibiting certain reading materials, such as the NRA magazine. Has the superintendent disclosed to the board that an outside group brought the gender unicorn flyers to the school? Did the superintendent disclose to the board that elementary schools had instances of children being
Lynn.
Tyler? Thanks, Tyler. We have your written comments as well.
Okay, I think I got cut off there. Couldn't talk for a couple minutes, but okay.
Okay, let me get back to. Sorry, I have to find the last one that. Sarah, you read Sarah Love's most recently, is that right?
Yeah, the next is Tatiana Salas, the short paragraph.
Yep, I wasn't sure if you did the, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Tatiana Salas Munoz, this has been such a tough time in education, and to have heard about what was said at the last board meeting was exasperating. The only way to accomplish the teaching hurdle this year is to have a positive relationship amongst students, teachers, and parents. Please support our students by encouraging parents who have concerns to address them directly with teachers. We are professionals. We rely on feedback to better our teaching methods. We listen. We need your support. Please help us do our job. This is from Todd Hornseth. To the Canby School Board, I stand 100% behind my colleagues in the Canby School District. One of the board's priorities is to, quote, strengthen the K-12 culture to promote student, parent, and staff success. The way in which the school board members publicly handled this and are currently handling this is not promoting student, parent, or staff success. To react emotionally and publicly to an image or a lesson without any context does not support the teachers, the students, or the parents involved. If school board members would have done their due diligence prior to reacting publicly, it would have been clear these lessons were not about political speech, but about topics, images, and articles taken out of context that struck a nerve with some people. These concerns should have led to a healthy, positive, private conversation that could strengthen the K-12 culture for all parties involved. This is, oh, there it is, Trista Ayers. To whom it may concern, I would like to introduce myself and a little background about my family and I. I am a lifelong Canby School District alumni, and my children were on track to be fourth generation Canby High School graduates. My husband and I are also business owners in Canby, along with my own family being in business in Canby for over 50 years. I feel I have a vested interest in the future of Canby and the young people being raised here, as they are what is shaping our community to grow. When COVID came around, my husband and I made the decision to pull our daughter, who would be a junior, and our son, who would be an 8th grader, out of Canby School District. We made this choice for several reasons, one being the way things were handled in the spring. We felt that all kids were lumped together as one and were being taught the bare minimum. Also, we were very disappointed the curriculum pushed the pandemic on the kids in their everyday work. This district should have stuck to this decided curriculum already in place and not reinvent and push the agenda that was getting started. We understood that the whole state was thrown into this mess, but we did not feel like the district was prepared or were able to get prepared, so every child was lumped into one category, instead of teaching the children that could be taught and ramping up the efforts of technology issues for the others. Canby School District used to have a much different feel. When my kids first started at 91, I felt like I was being listened to and that all kids were being treated fairly. Recently, that has changed. I was informed by a concerned parent about a photograph that was shown in an art class at 91. This did not have a direct impact on my child, but if children were allowed to go back into school, we wanted that for our kids. But in no way were we okay with the propaganda that was clearly being pushed with that picture. I feel that all history should be taught because that is why we are where we are today, because of good and bad things that have happened in history. We are a progressive nation and move forward. If a teacher wanted to use this as a teaching tool, then both sides should be presented in an unbiased teaching style. One way to have done this is to show a picture of a child, of a police officer or servicemen or women who lost their parent from not having a weapon and a criminal shooting them alongside the other photo. I took the correct steps in the chain of command to find out if this was truthful. This is from Zach Dolly. After reading the article released today by Canby First Podcast, I am very upset and disheartened as a resident of Canby and a father of a student of a child father of a child of a student of William Knight Elementary. Tripped me up. For several days, I've been hearing about some political image that was causing an uproar. I've been very concerned as to the nature of this image. When I saw the image and read the words, I was shocked. These are the words of a fourth grader. It's not political, but you are making it political. Trying to silence this voice is authoritarian and anti-American. This image, especially in the context of the whole lesson, is valid and good. I have shared this image with my daughter. She doesn't understand how it's political, why you are against it, or what the problem is. She is happy that she doesn't have this concern personally, but does have empathy for her peers from across the country. Your job as the board is to look after the education of our students, not amplify the ignorance of parents who need more education themselves. I will be watching closely how you do your jobs. Ooh, that was the end. I thought there were still more. Okay, thank you everyone that participated, that submitted comments. As I said, I mean, I'm amazed at the, it's even though we are coming at it from different perspectives, I think the civility that we all commit to as being part of this is I think we are being very civil with each other. And I appreciate that very much. Clearly, reading all those messages has made my brain fried a little bit, so don't mind me. Okay, back to the agenda. Item 4.0, Superintendent's Report.
Thanks, Angie. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. So I'll echo really what you just started to say. I'm really once again moved and proud to be a member of a district that models civility during a very divisive time in our nation and obviously our region. I'm really proud of all the dedicated teachers and administrators and staff members who really care deeply about their work and the service that they provide to our students and families. At this time right now, they're working tirelessly in an environment that they have not asked for. They would much rather be in schools working with our kids in a safe environment. And hopefully that'll happen here in some time in the future. They miss seeing their students, and I think it's really evident by what we heard tonight. I'm really proud of our parents who came forward tonight and spoke their truth, because as you said, it's important that we're able to have that kind of conversation and discussion in a really civil way. And I'm proud of the Oregon School Board of Education and the Oregon School Board Association, the Oregon School Administrators Coalition, the Oregon Education Association, OSEA, the Oregon Athletic Association, that all came together today in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, not politically. It wasn't a gesture of politicism, but rather to support marginally underserved families, staff members, and students of color who have been, again, historically marginalized for years, and also to affirm the equity work that's happening in Oregon. So that was really powerful today. As a district, again, many people said that we stand by all students, all abilities, all opportunities. It was really clearly evident tonight that both our teachers and our parents are committed to the students here in Canby, and we all want to continue to do all we can to serve our students well. I hope this discussion continues to be one that's civil and it engages us in a really respectful dialogue. I'm confident that we can do that as we move forward as a district to continue to serve all of our kids and all of our families. Last week, I had a great visit from Kyle Lang, director of the Canby Chamber of Commerce. He visited my office to acknowledge that we have a 50-year partnership with the Chamber of Commerce here in Canby. But I really respect his work. He's doing a great job. And I appreciate the fact that we have that really strong connection with the businesses here in the community. And lastly, I'll just say that Autumn Foster, our communications coordinator, put out a survey last week to our parents so that we'll get some feedback with regards to the program that we have currently going. And we made a commitment that we would do this on a regular basis throughout the year so that we could determine how we can improve on the work that we're doing. Obviously, it's very new to all of us to be totally online. And we're hopeful that what we receive from parents will give us that really positive, constructive criticism that helps us to grow and to get better. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Trip. Item 5.0, board comments. We're going to go in actual alphabetical order tonight. Trying to rotate that. So Stephanie, we will start with you.
Thank you, Angie. Appreciate it. I have some notes written down, but I'm actually going to add to it a little bit first tonight. I just want to let everybody know that there have been far more concerns that have been brought up than just this one picture in question. Far more. So there's always more to the story. I have talked to several parents personally. Email isn't the only form of communication that I use. So yeah, our children's minds are impressionable. God values every one of these kiddos' minds as well as their hearts. We are called to protect our kids, and I take that call very seriously. When I see things that are going on that could jeopardize their protection, I feel a deep conviction to call it out and bring it into the light. I was elected to represent the citizens, the parents, and their children of the Canby community. And when a parent has a concern, I will encourage them to go through the proper channels. But if this parent's concern includes fear of retaliation, I will happily boldly stand in the gap, and I will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Dawn.
Thank you, Angie. And thank you for reading all of those long letters tonight. So I just want to start by saying it's been a really hard year for every educator, parent, employee, employer, family member, daycare providers, and administrators with the challenge of changing the traditional classroom setting to a home-based learning center. Everyone has had to adjust, and unfortunately, our children and families are forcibly struggling to adapt in ways they cannot claim to have experience in. The world is a dynamic place right now, one where many don't feel safe to share their personal opinions due to the divisiveness of our country and local communities. In fact, being a board member and asking questions has made me feel very uncomfortable. It has disrupted my ability to work, to focus on my family, and to sleep. Why? Because I too fear a backlash for stating an opinion. Our district employs a Canby police officer that serves as a campus security at the high school. He's done a great job bridging the gap and open doors that would otherwise be closed by building trust among the students and administration. It's important that we keep building on this trust as they help protect the general welfare of our students and model professional behavior and compassion for our students. When a parent comes to me and tells me something in confidence and says that they are afraid of retaliation, I have to heed to their wish, keep their name private, and it's absolutely, I have to say, it's their fear and they're entitled to it. When I think about their fear of retaliation, it's easy to have perspective of how they may feel based on the current political culture that we live in today. A person's character and integrity is no longer judged on their actions or love and support of others, but on their political affiliations, and that's wrong. This is easily witnessed on social media right here today in our local community page. We've heard other teachers talk about that very thing today, and that's retaliation. I am grateful that I have honored their desire to keep their name in confidence. Otherwise, they'd likely get bullied for stating their opinion, and perhaps their child would get bullied as well. We must love everyone regardless of what they believe. It's important to value their opinions and not push our own. We need to respect their mindset, even if it differs from ours. I respect this parent, I love their children, and I will absolutely try to do what I can to help. We must stop. We have to evaluate and listen, every single one of us. As the board member of the Canby School District, I take my job and responsibilities very seriously. I have an obligation to respond to parents and staff when an issue arises and respond even if they are not comfortable in following the set complaint policies. I will always discuss, listen, investigate, and ask for additional information if I do not understand. That is exactly what happened in the past few weeks based on an art class picture. I asked to understand this project in hopes of receiving additional information, but I was told the project was appropriate and no additional information was provided until recently. I have an expectation that I would receive the information when I ask. It's my obligation to the parents and constituents who have elected me as a public official to ask the questions and seek clarification. I am hopeful on a go forward that parents continue to communicate their concerns, as I will continue to actively search out information and hopefully find resolution. It is also my hope that educators would also feel the same. I would like to recognize that the board has received numerous emails from educators in our district expressing concern about their ability to freely discuss charged political topics in the classroom. Given the difficult learning environment with COVID, any additional information is simply a distraction from curriculum. It is my hope that we can all recognize that the most important concern should be the comfort and education of our children. I think communication and transparency is vital to relationships and growth of this district. I know there's a lot of public comment tonight, and I'm really hopeful that everybody can have open hearts and really hear and respect everyone's opinions that we heard tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. Sarah.
Thanks, Angie. I'm just going to start by saying a really wise person once said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." And I've spent the last few weeks really listening and reflecting on the comments and concerns I've received from our families, our teachers, and our community members. And there's valid points made on all sides. And as a result, I believe this larger topic warrants further conversation. I know that many of us are frustrated. We're living in a time where our families, our community members, staff, and teachers are working so hard to adjust to a new and often very difficult normal. We are all at higher levels of stress and isolation, and largely surrounded by a culture of fear, divisiveness, and negativity. The path we're currently on is clearly causing more divisiveness, distrust, and fear on all sides within our community. Let's be better, Canby. Let's work together with understanding, with empathy, and with grace. Let's be peacemakers. Let's find common ground, and let's leave a legacy that we can all be proud of. I believe that's possible. I believe we can do that as a board, as a community, and as a school. There's no other pathway where our kids will win, and I know we can all agree that our kids are without question the priority here. I'm ready as a parent, as a community member, and a board member to have these hard conversations in a meaningful and positive and productive way. I can absolutely say that as a board, we work really hard to listen to you and to each other and do the right thing for our kids when we make decisions. Teachers, you are valued. Families and students, you matter. I'm committed to working together as a peacemaker when hard topics like this come up. Otherwise, our kids will lose every time.
Thanks, Sarah. Tom?
Thanks, Angie. I know myself well enough to know that I need to be a better listener. I imagine many out there tonight can say the same. In fact, I believe much of the divisiveness we're experiencing in our country today is failure to listen. Thank you to everyone that spoke tonight, and thank you to everyone for the many messages this week. I've appreciated hearing viewpoints from dozens of staff, and equally, I have appreciated hearing from dozens of parents and citizens who have voiced concerns. I'm disappointed that we find ourselves in the current situation. However, I value that we can disagree and continue to work towards a resolution. To Canby School District staff, I have no interest in removing your academic freedom. I value critical thinking as well as equally represented discussion and debate in our classrooms. However, academic freedom does not allow for unfettered use of content. I believe most will agree that there is a line somewhere that academic content cannot cross. I think the rub in our disagreement is that it is very difficult to agree on where that academic content line is drawn. What I have heard from staff is that they're professional educators and in turn should be trusted with freedom to judge where the academic content line should be drawn. I truly believe that the majority of staff do use good judgment in this regard. However, I have heard from many parents and community members, both recently and over the past 12 years as my time on the board, about inappropriate politically charged content in the classroom. These concerns cannot be and should not be disregarded. So I come back to being good listeners. I believe we need to have open conversations. Each side has valuable points that should be addressed. However, if we continue to point to district policies, complaint procedures, academic freedom, and contracts, it will become increasingly difficult to find good resolution. I do know that without continued conversation and compromise, that the divide will continue to grow. So I ask for open conversation with the intent to listen to each other's concerns and find compromise and resolution that results in what is best for all students with all backgrounds in our community. Thank you.
Tom. Rob?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone who's made public comment this evening as well, as well as for the numerous others who took the time to write to the board over the last couple of weeks. In my years on the board, I cannot remember a time when we've received so much input, and I think it shows that as a community, we care deeply about our children's education and our schools, and that caring in and of itself is a good thing. I'd also like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation and respect for the educators in our district, as well as for the district staff. These have been challenging times, to say the least, but I know the district's educators and staff are working extraordinarily hard under difficult circumstances in support of the education of our students, the students we serve. So thank you for your hard work and dedication to the students and families in our community.
Thanks, Rob. Mike.
Yes, I want to echo thanking everybody for all of their emails and letters. I've read 50 of them yet. I've got a couple more to go. I spent a lot of time reading the ones from staff. I spent a lot of time reading the ones from parents. And listening to everything today, everybody, the common theme was from everybody is no pushing the politics in the classroom. The staff said the same thing. Now, does that happen in sometimes? Yes, obviously it does. So how do we address that? We have a policy at the district regarding site councils. And Candy Millar brought it up during hers. It was enacted when we unified. And it's an opportunity for parents, staff, both certified, classified, and administrative, to sit down and to talk about the development plans to improve professional growth of the school staff, the improvement of schools' instructional program. That I would suggest that it is a opportunity or a avenue to continue with this conversation. I would like to see the site, and I don't know if they're effective now, because of the COVID, because of the obviously the pandemic, but it's a way to get down into the weeds, mom and dad to get down in the weeds with the teachers, with the administrators of that particular school, and talk about the instructional program. We have the policy that tells us how to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I actually planned on, obviously this has been, there's a lot going on in this particular area. I wanted to talk a little bit about my gratitude for some of the stuff that my son has been going through as we try to navigate this new world. There have been a couple of times where I've tried to help him, and he's seen the side of me of the redhead, as my brother calls it. When the redhead comes out, it's not very fun for anyone around. But I called through staff, trying to find somebody to help with the particular challenge we were having. And I was so relieved to be treated with empathy and creativity and a willingness and interest in trying to make things work. It's being a quote unquote teacher, which I always use quotes because I'm not one. It's really hard. It's scary. And this is, as everyone has said, this time has been incredibly challenging. So I just wanted to say thank you to the staff for, sort of being as you are, the people that are, you jump in and you try to help when you can, and are willing to change processes and things if they're not working. In terms of the conversation tonight, I think, we don't have it on the agenda specifically for this evening. I'm sure that we will continue the conversation going forward. And I really appreciated all of the comments that you all made. Lots of passion and thoughtfulness all around. So I'm sure we will continue the conversation. So item 6.0, consent agenda. 6.1 minutes and 6.2 personnel changes. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve consent agenda item 6.0.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hey, Kamala, will you please call the roll?
Stephanie?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And Angie?
Aye. Motion carries. So we'll skip to item 7.2, student investment account, grant agreement, public comment, and board approval. And this one does require a vote once Denise is done walking us through it. You're on, Denise.
Hey, well, good evening, board. Just wanted to bring this to you tonight. This agenda item is more procedural in nature than anything. It's part of the Student Success Act legislation. As you know, we approved, the board approved, and the state has approved the plan that was submitted last spring. And now just, it's kind of similar to when we brought the Awesome Grant application to you. This does require the board to also approve this grant agreement with the state. What it required us to do was to post this on our website, and we also have to allow if anyone has any public comment tonight on the grant agreement. And then it just requires the board to approve us entering into the agreement with the state for these monies. So if anyone had any questions, more just a formality than anything else.
Any questions? Great. We need a motion on this one as well, please.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the Student Investment Act or Investment Account Grant Agreement for the 2020-2021 fiscal year.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the Student Investment Account Grant Agreement for 2020-2021. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Kamala?
Stephanie?
She said aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Angie?
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Item 7.3, monthly teaching and learning update, Division 22 standards for the 2019-20 school year. Is that right?
Yep, it is correct. So on April 16th, 2020, the school board, or the state board, excuse me, adopted a new administrative rule and established the Division 22 standards that were to be in effect for the 1920 school year, which accommodated for school closures and provided appropriate flexibility to districts during this time. School districts are required to report on Division 22 standards included in this new rule, and any standard not included in the new rule is waived for the 1920 school year. The OAR includes 17 standards as part of the new rule. These specific standards were chosen in order to define really a floor for distance learning in the spring and to help ensure basic level of service across the state. And it also implements a new timeline for districts to complete the assurance process. This means that for the 1920 school year assurances process, we are to report to our school board and post our report on our webpage no later than November 1st. Districts are asked to report assurances to ODE no later than November 15th, and the November 15th submission deadline will permanently replace the February 15th submission deadline going forward. So in the past, we've always done this in January and posted by February 1st, and that will be changed going forward. So to summarize what the differences are between the past requirements as well as the 1920 requirements, we've gone from 54 standards to 17 standards. The former requirements reflect an intact school year, while the 1920 requirements accommodate for a disrupted school year. And then, as I mentioned, the timeline is going to change to November 15th moving forward. In your board material, you will see the 17 standards, and Canby School District is in compliance with those 17 standards for the 1920 school year. They have also already been uploaded on our website. Last year, I do want to mention that there were 3 areas where we were out of compliance. The first was comprehensive sexual education, which we have put on hold. The second is PE minutes, and that had a plan for implementation, but we could not do that this year due to distance learning, and we'll be continuing to look at that plan when we return fully to our school buildings. And the third was our process with curriculum adoptions, which we're still working through specifically in social science and science, even within distance learning. These 3 areas that I just mentioned are not part of the 17 standards, but we continue to work on those regardless. So we will submit our report to ODE and provide evidence that this was reported here at the school board, as well as evidence that it's on our website. That's it.
Great, thank you. Anyone have any questions or anything? Okay. Item 7.5, financial and funds report enrollment update.
All right, so just first going over the cover sheet for the month ending September 30th, our construction excise tax fund had a balance of $150,454 and 78 cents. The only change from last month was our interest payments. We will be receiving sometime either this month or the beginning of the next month any payments from the first quarter of this year. So we'll be watching for those. I haven't seen anything yet from the county, and I don't think they'll be seeing anything from the city of Wilsonville. Then just looking at the actual financial report, haven't received any new revenue estimates. Today we did in the mail, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but it'll be reported next month. We received our property tax information from Clackamas County. So I'll have an update on that projected number for line 1 for next month. There hasn't been any new updates to state school fund or any of the other agencies that we receive monies from. So that is yet to be seen if there's any changes there. Then when you look down on the expenditure piece of that, that includes putting in all the staff salaries and benefits as of September, the September payroll. Keep in mind that we are still in negotiations with our classified association. So it's that will change once that piece of it is settled. So this is just those estimates for the year. We're still waiting to see. We don't know what expenditures might be underspent this year because we know we've had reduced sub cost, transportation costs. There's going to be some other items that are underspent. So we'll just be watching that piece of it to see how that impacts our budget. Because the one thing that is, if we go on to the enrollment side of things, as you can see, I changed our report from last year. I've added a new column that shows the COLA by school. So you can see the total numbers of the students in the online academy, along with just giving you a summary by grade level so that you can see how many kids in each of the grade levels are in that learning model. As you can see, based on our budget and what we actually saw at the end of September, we're down 346 kids over what we had projected. So it's a big number. And one of the largest decreases is in the kinder students. And we've heard that that's a common trend across the state, with either parents keeping those kids at home or bringing them into school possibly next year. So we're watching that. As you know, I've reminded you that we're currently being paid off of the 1920 ADM. It's just going to have an impact on our budget for next year if kids don't show back up, because that's a big drop in revenues. So we'll be watching that piece of it. So hopefully this helps so that you can kind of see which of the kids are in which types of learning models. And I don't know if anyone had any questions about that at all.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you tell me what's trending? I mean, you probably don't know, but just out of curiosity, like you said, like with kinders, like that's pretty average for other districts. Like we're kind of seeing that everywhere. Do you know what the average is with other districts as far as kids not returning right now and doing the homeschool or charters?
I haven't, my last check-in with my advisory was the middle of September. So we are kind of right in the middle of fire and evacuation. So I have another meeting, I believe it's next week with my advisory. So I'll ask that question. I don't know if Tripp's heard anything different in his meetings. I only meet once a week. Some of the other groups meet more often. I don't know if anyone else had any more information.
No, we haven't heard like specific numbers, Dawn, but I can certainly reach out to, we can all reach out to other district superintendents or, business people and find out what it looks like.
I sure would be interested in knowing that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. You bet.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Denise.
Thanks.
All right, we are to item 8.0, future agenda items. I will I've heard requests to continue this conversation, so I'll let you all decide how to frame it, but something with the continuation of tonight. Mike.
Yes, and then it kind of falls into our conversation, what occurred this evening, and also my comment regarding the site council. I'd like that to be on the agenda of an update on what the site council is doing now. I realize because of the pandemic, it could be hard. I don't even know if we have site councils anymore. We did years ago. They were very, very effective. And then I would also, if appropriate, task the site council to do some particular work for the board or, I don't know, communication. So anyway, that's one agenda item. And the other agenda item I would request is that the June 17th planning workshop date be changed. That's my 49th wedding anniversary. Thank you.
You're looking pretty far ahead there. Nice.
I just saw that. I just noticed it.
Yeah, you should make sure you get some points for bringing that up.
That's right.
Marcia.
49 years. She's a saint.
Yeah. I don't think any of us are going to argue with you. Sorry, Mike. So I added site councils. We can talk about the date. We'll look at that and try to figure it out going forward. Rob?
No additional agenda items, but I'm just curious, the topics that were postponed from tonight, will those all be moved to the next agenda, or are they going to be spread?
They'll all be moved to the next agenda.
Okay.
It was kind of it was a last minute decision based on the volume of incoming. So there wasn't, we essentially left the things we had to do tonight on. And then I kept the enrollment report on, because obviously I think that's something that we all are asking about a lot. So everything else will be on the next agenda.
Great, thanks.
Any other agenda items? Okay, item 9.0, good of the order. Anyone have anything else? Okay, we will recess this meeting and go into executive session. Last time we were not able to get back in this meeting to close the official meeting. We think we've got it worked out technically. But for the board, we'll see if it works. But in theory, we should be able to come back and close the meeting officially in this space